Welcome to A Bone to Pick, and we're at T-Bone's Archery Dojo, and literally he is setting up bows. He's doing it with such ease. He's doing it on one leg. T-Bone Turner!
I'm back! I'm back!
Oh, Lord. The last time we talked, we was about crying, so now we still understand
we wasn't about crying.
The situation. No, we were, dude.
Yeah, I was crying, man. Yep, and still feel the same way. It's just we down the road now. You know what I mean? One day at a time. We down the road.
One day at a time.
All's good, man. All is good. We setting up bows, and hunting season's coming, and arrows are flying, and stuff hopefully is gonna be dying. So
no doubt, man. And it is. It's like, everybody asks me all the time. It's the number one question. I know they still ask you, hit you up on social media. How's T-Bone doing? And we had a chance to do the Monster Bucks the other day.
Yep.
And Bushnell and Realtree. Everybody was down, and obviously we were shooting our bows, smiling. So if you want to know how T-Bone's doing, obviously he can go into a little of that. But the dude's still smiling, man. He's setting up bows. Literally, I brought my brand new Hoyt up here today, and we're going to kind of, after we're done chatting and catching up, he's going to turn a few wrenches, because it's always been known T-Bone Turner, the best bow wrench in the land. I don't even touch a bow. You have made me so lazy when it comes to technicality of archery. The only thing I'm doing now is fletching up some arrows and putting some inserts in and experimenting with broadheads and the G5, Amor. And outside of that, though, if it's technical, if something ain't doing right, I'm like, T-Bone, I'm calling you, or on the way up here to Hogansville. So.
Oh, man, I appreciate it. I mean, even 30, 40 years into this, I'm just absolutely love it. Can't get enough of it. So, I'm to answer your question, I'm doing good. I'm doing pretty good. You got a few days where you got your lip poked out and, man, I want to do that, or, I wish I could do that. But for the most part, all's good. Just still waiting on my leg, the dang insurance. So while I'm here, Blue Cross Blue Shield, they're fighting, saying that I didn't need the heavy duty leg.
Are you serious?
They said I didn't need the heavy-duty foot that the prosthetic people use. I'm like, I need the heavy-duty leg. So if you're watching this, how about sending over I'm talking into the camera now. If you're watching this, if you wouldn't mind sending a little message over to Blue Cross Blue Shield of Georgia and saying, get T-Bone's leg.
That's right.
We're in litigation trying to get my leg and get rehabbing on that.
What T-Bone's saying, no fat jokes, but all the heavy-duty jokes you want to talk about. And I think that if you marry up, and anybody that looks at T-Bone Turner, if you don't think T-Bone Turner ain't heavy-duty, that means Stone Cold Steve Austin ain't never body slammed somebody.
That's exactly right.
That makes no sense.
Not at all. So
Crazy world.
We're having to prove that. Doctors are writing appeals and stuff like that. And, I've bought everything. I'm waiting on the insurance to pay for that. I bought all my electric chair to tootle around on and all my other little things that I needed. Rails in bathrooms and things like that, where we had to adapt to what we got going on. I've paid for all that out of pocket because I was told that do that so that the insurance would 100% pay for your prosthetic leg. And don't you know, they're fighting it tooth and nail. So for the last 3 or 4 weeks, we've been in volleying back and forth trying to get that approved. So hopefully here soon. Yeah, my leg's done. I can, actually, they set me up an appointment every 2 weeks. I can go up there and visit my leg and walk around. I can walk around on my new leg for about an hour, but bye leg. Hopefully I take you home next week.
Well, has the insurance company ever thought if they put you on a lightweight leg and then you broke that one and hurt yourself more, that obviously they'd be liable for more insurance?
No, they don't think
we don't want our man T-Bone to get hurt no more. And by the way, he is heavy duty, and he needs a heavy duty leg. Yeah. Everything we've ever had around T-Bone is heavy duty. Our tree stands, the bows, our vehicles.
Why would you want a marginal failure on something? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I don't want a marginal failure. I don't want it on my bow. I dang sure don't want it on my leg. Yeah.
I guess a good analogy, if you ever looked at, maybe the shocks on a Chevy Cavalier versus a monster truck.
Yeah.
Little heavy-duty difference.
Exactly, man. So I guess
my man a heavy-duty leg.
They're pushing back where they can. But anyway, all's good. Just waiting on season, good, bad, or otherwise. Even if I got to hunt out of a chair, I'm gonna do a little hunting this season. So
yeah. There's two things I will go ahead and say on tape and audio, obviously, if you listen. Is two things I owe you. One is me and you both love Carrabba's, so we're gonna go get some of that Pola Maria. I think you like the steak, that marsala with that goat cheese on it, which I don't like goat cheese because I was raised around a lot of goats. And
you said you could smell goats when you eat it. Love it.
Yeah, you love it, and my wife loves it. So Christy told me to tell you two things. She wanted to cook you a nice meal and bring it up, and she was really mad at me because I didn't in advance let her know, because she had told me, look, when you go to T-Bone's, please let me know so I can cook him a nice meal.
Oh,
and
that's
so
all right.
now not only you're going to be frustrated with me, she's frustrated with me, and my man Smeck is mad at me because he usually would get the residuals.
That's exactly right.
So I owe you a home cooked meal from my wife, or my wife wanted to at least do that
good.
for you guys, as well as I owe you a trip or some to-go order of Carrabba's, because we talked about that. So,
yeah, we're all good, man. It's all good. I need to skip a couple meals anyway. So
me too.
Yeah, we need to. I need to get down to where I can use a light duty leg.
I've been doing a little of nothing now, to where if it don't work out you to be heavy duty, turn it in and just pretend that you're me.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I believe I could pass for major league heavy
Yeah,
duty
you would
right
think
now.
that all you'd have to do is send in a picture of who's getting the leg, and then yep, done. He needs heavy
Wouldn't
duty.
that be easy?
I mean, yeah, or look on the health charts. Yeah, he weighs that much. Ooh, yeah, he needs a heavy duty.
Who
leg.
could ever look at this and like, heavy duty? No,
That's
not
crazy.
him.
Yeah,
You made your whole living being called T-bone, and I would think if there was a parentheses, it would say heavy duty.
yeah, crazy.
Heavy duty Archer.
I know I'm not the only one to ever go through that, so I don't want to complain too much. But nonetheless, we need to get things right, among other things in this country.
Yeah.
But that is one thing that I'm, that kind of affects me big time. So I'm ranting a little bit about that. So, but it'll all be good one way or another. Hey, these two arms, they're working good. They'll be all right.
But doesn't it seem overall, it's like the last several years you laugh to keep from crying? I mean, I've heard that old cliche a long time, but literally that's what we do. To stay positive, sometimes you laugh. You really want to sit down, get mad, and shed a tear, or throw a punch, and you're like, man, I'm just going to laugh this off. He can't eat me.
Yeah.
But Lord, you've been through enough hell, and then literally want to get a leg, because obviously it's coming hunting season.
Yeah.
And that would help a lot. Just getting into the blind.
Yeah, I mean, even if it's not walking on it every day and everything, but just to help mobility, climb a few stairs. Like, I can't even come to your house and see you now.
Right.
Because I can't get up the stairs. So with the leg, I could get up a few stairs and at least get in the house, sit on a stool or something like that. So, there's got to be a lot of rehab and a lot of learning that goes with it whenever it gets here. But we just needed to get here so that we can do the best we can with what we got.
That's just unfair, because we neither one can see Nick, because we both got restraining orders against him, and that's more of a legal. And then yours is all to do with the leg.
Yeah, I know
it's just unfair. It's really messing up friendships.
I know it. I mean, the hurdles we get, the longer we live.
We can't make our music, man. It's getting hunting season, baby.
I know it. I have been practicing on my old Jew harp, and remember Ira Dean got me that ukulele, so I've been.
Right. You need to practice up.
Yeah.
We'll start doing that.
I thought that would be funny if I did learn a little bit on that ukulele. I mean, like y'all are playing these full-size guitars, and there's old Big T-Bone over there. Bling, ding, boom, bing,
You could be like Sugar Ray. You remember that guitar, like, spread your love on fire?
Yeah. That's right.
That could be just your part.
I just want to add to it. That's just a little bit. All right, hit it, T-Bone. When Nick does his harmonica, I'm over there with a Jew harp
Or what
ukulele.
about, should I stay or should I go? He says, da-da-da-da-da-da.
Yep.
Just that one little lick. Yep.
Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun.
You'd be like the John Hall of Daryl Hall and John Oates. If you'd be John Oates.
Got to grow my mustache a little thicker. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I was the background dancer for the Bone Collector, but then now that I'm one legged, I'm not so much anymore.
It's gonna be tougher.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if that'd be better for insurance if you said you was dancing and got your leg twisted up in a carpet or
For
something.
some reason, I think that they think I'm going for the 100-yard dash and the 100-meter dash in the Olympics or something.
Did you ask for the leg that had the blade?
Yeah,
like
no.
The dude who he ended up.
It does have a blade. The foot is a blade, but you can't see it. It's inside the foot.
I'm thinking about that one that looks like the shocks off an old Model T.
Yeah.
It looks like a big thing where you could race.
Yeah, that I think that's what they think that I'm getting, but I'm not getting that. Yeah.
So that leg would take 3 steps for you without your one even hitting the ground.
That's right.
So more like a pogo.
That's right. Boom, one. Boom, one.
If that happens, I want to get me a couple of them. I might get up on that mountain. I might be the best high desert mule deer hunter out there after that.
That's
Cameron
crazy.
Haynes would be calling me looking for tips, right? How you getting up the mountain? They just call me Blade.
I have seen where they had those backpack those jet propelled packs.
Yes.
And that's how they're climbing up the mountain now, like to get to certain places. I should have sent it to you.
Are you serious?
I'm serious. Like you're at the bottom and you just because
you're
it won't
walking,
run far.
Your legs on the ground?
No.
No, you're completely.
No, you're just off the ground, like 10, 20 foot off the ground. You just get to where you're going and then set her down, leave your jetpack, and then you walk back down the mountain.
So technically, if your jetpack goes out, you're 7 to 10 foot. You could actually probably not hurt you too bad.
You might not. It might not kill you, but it'd be like falling from a tree stand. But nonetheless, you got better chances of falling 20 foot than you did super duper 100 foot. You can go 100 foot if you want to, but these guys was just like riding along the edge of the mountain.
No way.
Oh yeah, like 2 or 3 miles.
That actually be pretty killer.
Yeah.
You could always tumbleweed down if you injured yourself on the way up.
Yeah,
just roll down.
But you know, a lot of states wouldn't allow that because you can't hunt the same day you fly. Am I right?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. Oh, we're gonna camp tonight, but we up the mountain.
It makes you wonder if Michael Jordan be legal anywhere.
True.
Or R. Kelly.
Exactly.
He always believed he could fly.
Yep. That's what the song says.
He didn't fly past Kids' Choice Awards.
No, he didn't.
Yeah, I'm glad we're talking about hunting.
Exactly.
I mean, this is just good target talk and all. But I tell you what, T-Bone, to switch gears a little bit, obviously we got our new Hoyts in, and today I'm excited because we're about to put a video on YouTube of you showing me, you know, the attributes of this new Hoyt they got out, and we're going to set up this bow. I'm getting ready to go to Bow Fest 2 to go up there and hang out with some guys, shoot our bows.
What a good time. Great time.
What are you seeing in the new modern bow equipment, especially from the Hoyt side of things, that you like? Not necessarily just this year, but the last few things and years that you've seen that you really like.
I guess if you had to put it in a couple words, is like streamline and options, meaning they're giving you options so that you can build the bow the way you want to, whereas in the past, everything like you put on the bow and it just like stacks out. Like for a right-handed archer, it just stacks out to the right, and then we all got a natural cant to the right. And you know yourself, you know, because you started shooting with your quiver on your bow, you know, like everything's this way, everything's just kind of tilting this way a little bit. Well, now what they've done is made it to where everything comes together in line, so that you got the Picatinny rail in the front that you can put your, you know, there's a lot of side options that you can have it right there, so you don't bolt it to the side. Streamline quivers that are, you know, only an inch and a half off the side of the riser of the bow, rather than being 3 and 4 inches, you know, and leverage you one way or another. Plus, they've offered the SL side mounts for your stabilizer, because everybody's shooting the rear stabilizer as an offset has been a big option, and it's helped with the offset of the weight and the shape of the riser. And then, of course, the shortstop, the way the riser design is you really don't have to have a stabilizer on the bow, because the riser design and the little shortstop quiver that's on there, it's really just optional if you want to, and to fine-tune your aiming as far as your oscillations at longer distances. So you've got two basically holes there for your stabilizer, which will help you fine-tune your humming and your aiming to where that you can have a confident and comfortable shot. So the options are there. So what I'm saying is like, no two bows are the same way. No, you know, people don't set their trucks up, don't buy the same tires, don't buy the same wheels, don't put the same things on there. That's the way the bow didn't have as many options in the past. Now you got the inline integrated rest you can use. You can either bolt it on the side like you used to. So there's just so many options to weight it the way you want to. Keep it extremely light, because Hoyt's always been known with their RX-7 carbon line of it being extremely light. So you can keep it extremely light, and you can integrate everything to where it's right in line. So there's a lot of, and they've went to the binary cam the last 2 years, which it's not something that I've been real used to, but I've got to know it over the last 2 years. Is once you get it where you want to, and most of the time they're that way out of the box, but you can shim the wheels one side or the other, it stays put. I mean, it really stays put. It doesn't jump around, doesn't change tuning or anything like that. So I've been real impressed with them. And quiet, I mean, you know how quiet they've been. I mean, unbelievably quiet. So you're getting really great speeds, you're getting shootability, and it's really, really quiet. So, you know, there's only one or two companies, in my opinion, in the industry that are true innovators, and Hoyt has always been that way.
Yeah.
And I'm you know, proud they still got the Tech riser, which has been the backbone of their riser designs. I mean, you can make out a Hoyt riser from, you know, 20 yards away. You can say, period. There's the back bridge. There's the, you know, it's the bracing support, and it's very, very functional. And it, you know, now it just melds right on into the streamline of the bow. So they've got a lot of nice things out there. So adjustable. You can just each cam about 5 to 6 inches. You can change the on the fly without even having a press. You can change the let off from high let off to low let off, which is 85 down to 80. It's really nice, everything that they've done. So it's just, from a shop standpoint, if I owned a shop, it's nice to know that I can buy one bow and fit a bunch of people, rather than years ago, a lot of the manufacturers had one single module, one single cam for that draw length, and it's like, oh, well, 28's what it is, and you're 29, I'll just have to order you a whole new bow. It's not that way now. Shop owners can stock a bunch of bows and they can fit everybody, and then they're efficient in every one of those draw lengths. So that makes it real nice for the consumer as well as the shop owner. So
sounds like the biggest upgrade is the fact that you got NASCAR kind of vibe in this bow, where they come in and get a little wedge.
Yep.
Take a little, car's a little tight, whatever, they can adjust it on the fly, which your bows didn't have that capability as far as the ergonomically easy way to balance a bow. And now the way everything's drilled and tapped, the way the risers are designed, you just got a lot more way to take that bow and fit it, specialize it to you, versus if that one bow before wasn't special to you, then it might not be the bow that fits you. But it sounds like the Hoyt makes it easy for the shop owners as well as the consumer to have that technology in their cams and shooting that way. Because one thing I always loved about a Hoyt versus the other brands, I just love the draw cycle of a Hoyt.
Yep.
And I know a lot of people put no thought into that draw cycle, and they're just thinking about the way it feels when you shoot, how fast it shoots. But for me, I've always been always had gut piles in any situation, whether it's the doldrums of summer or during the season. I'm always thinking about these situations I'm in. And I just always like the way a Hoyt draws from a standpoint of cold, frosty morning. I like the way it rolls over, the way it sets in, where some bows are more aggressive. And, of course, you can probably set a lot of bows, even your Hoyts, up to be more aggressive. But I just like the draw cycle of a lot of the Hoyts. But
and what comes with that is muscle memory, meaning for so many years, your muscles, your body knows. It's like on autopilot. It's like, I know this is the way it's going to draw. I know when it's going to drop off. And people get used to whatever they do. But if you've shot a bow long enough, which we all have, you can tell what you like and what you don't like. Wow, that's a harsh draw cycle. But you can get used to anything. However, to know that it is a smooth draw cycle and it's a comfortable draw cycle. And then on the shot, with the parallel and subparallel limb bows, the energy is transferred up and down. You don't have much vibration. The bow doesn't lunge. All the energy is transferred up and down, so it sits in your hand even after the shot, as well as makes it extremely, extremely quiet. So all those things, another point I thought of just as we were talking, something they did different this year. If you've paid attention to Hoyt, they've had aluminum risers and they've had carbon risers. And whether one you choose, of course, the carbon riser are a little more expensive than the aluminum riser, but they were essentially the same bow, same limbs, same cam, same strings. Tune was exactly the same. The only difference was the aluminum riser versus carbon riser. Well, this year they've done something different. You have 4 different bows, actually. It's the same limbs, it's the same cams, but what they did was they made different draw lengths, because they realized that you may have a 30-inch axle to axle on a Ventum. The regular Ventum is a 30-inch axle to axle. Then the RX-7 is going to be a 31, and then you have the Ventum 33 Pro, which is 33 inches axle to axle, and then the RX-7 Ultra is a 34-inch. So you have 4 different axle to axles, and the only thing they didn't change the limbs, or they didn't change the cam, they just changed the positioning of the limb pocket to make that axle to axle different. And what that does is, for the person when they anchor in, when you come back, because of the axle to axle and or the draw length, it changes the apex of the string, how tight it is, and that therefore changes. One may be more comfortable to the other, so that you can pick which one you wanted to. If that is something that is really, really important to you, and you've got options again, like I'm saying, you got 4 different axle to axles to choose from, so that the apex of the string and the torque of the knock, if that's something that's really high on your priorities, you can address. But the aluminum risers are going to save you quite a bit of money. I've chose to actually shoot the Venom Pro 33 this year, the aluminum riser one.
Yeah.
And equally as quiet, just extremely solid, all the features and everything with the integration. They're exactly the same in that respect, but I like that 33-inch axle to axle. The apex of the string, where it lines up on my anchor points as far as the corner mouth, tippy nose looking through the peep sight, that apex and that angle works best for me.
Feel good about it.
Yep, so that's why I've chose the 33. There's other reasons.
What would be the advantage, T-Bone? Say a 30-inch. Sometimes there's some very short bows out there, but traditionally a 30-inch bow has always been considered decently short.
Yep.
And then you get on up into your 34, 35-inch bows, and obviously you like the 33. What are the advantages of the short?
The short. Long? I got you. The axle to axle of the bow.
The axle to axle is what it is.
Yep. The axle to axle of the bows do several things. The longer axle to axle is normally more accurate, especially if you're taking longer shots. You can aim it a little better, almost like a tightrope walker is not going to walk across a gorge with a mop handle. He's going to have a long 20-foot of stick out beside him that he's balancing and going across through there. So, it helps with balance. It helps with your aiming.
The length of that.
The length of it, just because you've got something there to balance and stuff like that. And it helps on the apex of the string. Not as much torque on the knock. I mean, these are things that you're just checking off that it can do. However, in some applications, it makes better sense to have a short bow. You're in a tree stand. You're probably not going to shoot over 35, 40 yards. You want it so that it's, tucked in there tight so that you don't hit it on limbs. You don't hit it on the side of the stand. You don't hit it inside of a blind. It's real tight, so you're not going to be taking like 50, 60, 70, 80-yard shots. Or you may be the guy that's like, man, I'm trying to shave every little bit of weight. I've got a really short draw. I see that this 30-inch axle-to-axle bow is the fastest of them. A little shorter axle-to-axle usually translates into a little more speed. Me, it's worth more for the forgiveness and the accuracy to have a longer bow because I am a little longer draw length of a longer axle-to-axle, and I'll give up that 6, 7, 8, 9 feet per second to gain the accuracy and the comfortability and the forgiveness, whereas a shorter draw guy or somebody that is primarily hunting whitetails and stuff, a 30-inch will work absolutely fine. And the advantages, too, which I know we're going to deep dive into this a little bit more, is the advantages to the speed of a bow is we've got it all wrong for so many years, and it's not our fault. God has programmed us to be ego. You know what I mean? It's like, why do you buy the Corvette? It don't make sense. I'm not going to be able to drag a deer out with a Corvette. I can't even go get groceries in a Corvette.
Can put two people if you include the driver.
However, that Corvette will do a 4-second quarter mile, or 0 to 60 in 4 seconds or whatever. It's stroking. We want it because it's fast. Well, that's the way they've sold bows for so long. Faster is better, so everybody gets hung up. A lot of people get hung up. I think things are changing now, and now's even a good time to address all that. But you get to the IBO legal, which is 30-inch draw, which very seldom people are. I don't know why they pick 30 inches. A 30-inch draw with a 350 grain arrow, and what it shoots is your IBO rating, and that's what they put so that when you're buying a bow, that you see that bow is 335 feet per second. At IBO legal, you know that it's a standard in which we measure it. So people get in their head, I'm buying a bow that's shooting 330 foot a second. Then when they shoot their bow through there, their hunting setup, and it's 270, they're upset. Yeah. So we've set an unattainable, realistic goal of what your speed needs to be. And what we need to do is look at that as this is what it's capable of doing. This is its speed. But we need to take that speed, and rather than harnessing it with the absolute fastest setup we can shoot with lightweight arrows, just because the stigmatism is faster is better. Faster is not better. Faster is a slow hit is way better than a fast miss. And we can deep dive into the reasons why of that. But what we need to do with that is take the efficiency that gets us 335 feet per second, that allows me to really manipulate the arrow that I'm shooting and still be really, really fast. You and I had a talk about this.
Yes, we did.
So we're going to take this 330 foot a second, and then we got options. Again, options. We can build an arrow that is the optimum FOC, the heaviest weight, and get it in a speed that we want, so that it's actually, there's categories that you want to fulfill with your archery setup, not just like
based on the technical side of what you're trying to achieve in the field, I'm assuming, versus are you a high mountain mule deer hunter?
Exactly.
Are you a guy that's hunting hogs under a feeder?
The application.
Are you a guy that's just hunting in a tree stand that's going to be taking 15 to 30-yard shots possibly in the woods?
Yes.
So I'm assuming we're thinking all of this. We're putting all this into the equator
Let's
based on this personality.
Per the person. A lot of things I'm going to talk about today, or we're going to talk about today, is based off of the standard. A guy that's a 28-inch draw to a 30-inch draw.
Yep.
Guy that can pull.
That's your average.
Yep. A guy that can pull 65 to 75 pounds. There's extremes on either side of that, and then you're going to have to manipulate and or change things based off of your personal needs and what critter you're going after, the application of what you're going to do.
The best application for the majority.
Right.
Which that falls in
That's
that
what we're
going
to
to
talk about is mainly the majority. You know what I mean? The person that, like I said, 28 to 30 and that pulls 65 to 70 pounds. This is my thoughts, my opinion, and I think most everybody will agree.
What the hell do you know, T-Bone? You've only been doing this since you was 3.
Well, it's just my thoughts. I've set up bows. I've set up bows. We've set up bows. People in the industry from one end to the other. I've hunted with 340 feet per second. This was 20 years ago when bows didn't even shoot like that. I've hunted
overdraws,
overdraws, super light beam and arrow, basically dry firing the bow, and I've hunted, all the way down to recurves. We've shot recurves, heavy arrows, as well. And I'm very.
Have you had success with all of that?
Oh yeah,
in creating gut piles too.
Yes, but there's got to be in each application or each category. You can't just go. I am a huge fan of what Dr. Ashby has to say and the foundation, and I'd like to consider Dr. Ashby a friend. Long before this was even talked about or he was well known through social media and stuff, Dr. Ashby used to come to my store.
Mm-hmm.
He has friends here in Franklin, and he'd come to the store a couple times. He's visited the store. We've had long conversations. I was on the Ashby bandwagon and believed in everything that he said because of the physics and if there is such a thing as we always like to say, the biology of death.
Yeah.
Dr. Ashby wrote it.
Yeah.
However, there's more to him going down the road of penetration and being absolute, the most devastating arrow there ever is. No doubt what he says is factual, is true. You can hang your hat on it.
Scientific.
You can't argue with it. It's
right.
It's right. He's killing Cape buffalo with a 45-pound recurve with 1,250 grain arrows with 30% FOC.
Mm-hmm.
No doubt no one will ever argue that is
something that would work.
Absolutely on a Cape buffalo.
Create a big gut pile. Yeah.
However, to do that, there are certain things, especially with a compound bow, that you lose. You back up on your trajectory, your your pin gap. You and I talked about this, and I believe in this. Is you almost get a feel for your pin gap is almost like becoming the arrow.
It's a part of you.
It's a part of you. Yeah.
If you're used to shooting a certain
speed. When I say a pin gap, that can be a single pin. But for Michael and I, it's a fixed pin system. And when I say that, I mean the fixed pin system is you're used to seeing this sight window, and you've shot so much, whether it be 3Ds in the backyard, whether you've killed critters or whatever, you get used to it. It's almost like a baseball player, an outfielder, has threw that rope to home plate many times.
At 90 feet, however far it is from
exactly.
pitcher bounce to the catcher.
He knows what that weight of that baseball, and he knows what it's going to take to get it there, how accurate, because he's a professional.
It's no thought.
All right. Me and you get out there, and then all of a sudden I take and put a baseball that weighs twice as much. He's lost his last year's Easter egg. He can't get it to home plate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there's a lot to be said for having a comfort factor of your trajectory. All right, now we're at 330 foot a second with a really, really light arrow. And then you got other scientific studies showing, man, you got to shoot 1,250 grains. You got to shoot 900 grains. You got to do this and that. That will do it. This will do it. Both of them will do it. But let's try to check off the pros and try to get a little bit of everything. So
the pros and cons of all this.
And I'm saying all that this is the way I would build an arrow for the common guy, and this is what I think, based off of critters that you're hunting. It's
28 to 30 inch draw, 60 to 70 pound
65
draw.
to 75 pound draw,
Okay.
60 to 70 pound draw. The average guy shooting is what he shoots, and you're hunting stuff in North America. You know what I mean?
And we're talking elk,
mule deer.
We throw elk, mule deer. Could you
bear,
throw moose in there?
Moose may take moose and elk. You may want to tweak a little bit, but for the most part, you're going to be in the wheelhouse if you do this, and I think it's pretty simple. And again, this is just my personal opinion. You take the bow and you pull. The best way to get more speed, more energy is poundage on your bow. Well, draw length, of course, but you can't adjust your draw length. Your draw length is your draw length, and you want it to be exact so that you shoot the most efficiently. And all this boils down to is what I'm getting at, is where I'm going to end up, is accuracy always wins. Accuracy is the best thing, okay?
Yeah.
And trajectory and lowering your pin gap is a part of that, but accuracy is always going to win.
Yes.
Because if you're just throwing a heavy arrow and you're just hitting in this area, I would much rather have a little lighter arrow hitting like this.
Amen.
I'm not saying light. I'm not saying light. It's going to be heavy, but it ain't going to be T-bone heavy.
Yeah, won't be heavy duty.
It won't be heavy duty. All right, so first step, set the bow to where you can pull it the heaviest you possibly can comfortably. Keyword is comfortably. All right, let's just say that that's end up being 72, 74 pounds, like what we shoot. Next thing you need to do is take a 550 grain arrow or thereabouts and shoot it through the meter and see where you're at. Or you can take it, let's just say, no, let's don't do that. Let's do it the other way. Let's take a 450 grain arrow and shoot it through the meter. And if the meter shows that you're shooting 315, 320 foot a second, it's like, wow, we got something to work with.
We're smoking pretty good.
I don't really like to shoot. The number I'm shooting for is 500. I'd love to be at 500 grains.
On your arrow?
On my arrow. The 500, the whole arrow, complete, broadhead, everything. I'm shooting for 500 plus, 5 to 550.
Yep.
And I'm hoping I end up heavier. But then what we're doing is if we're shooting a 450 grain arrow, shooting 320 feet a second, we've got options. Now here we go. So we start building the arrow. We take the arrow, and you're cutting it the length that you need. The shorter means it more stiffer so that you make sure that you can put more weight up front. So don't go by a chart and get the arrow that says for your draw length needs to be this spine, because if you're going to manipulate the weight of the arrow and the FOC, you're going to need stiffer than what you normally would need. 2 weeks.
Just trying to get that train out of the track so more force is going to be on that arrow.
That's right, because if the stiffness can't absorb the energy from the bow, it's going to be too weak and therefore cause bad problems that you're never going to fix.
Can't be underspined.
Cannot be underspined. Overspined, I don't think that is a problem. Once the arrow is, in my opinion, once the arrow is stiff enough or too stiff, they say too stiff, once it's absorbing that energy, it's good.
It's going one way.
That's going one way. So then that gives us options on the weight. So then what we do is start adding this up. You can take there's a lot of different ones, whether you're shooting gold tip. I'm shooting these Cirrus arrows, but all of them, and these are components. Finally, in the last 5 years, people are building accessorized good components. You build this nice arrow, and you get this, you pay $150 for a dozen arrows, and then usually the manufacturer throws in a 15-cent insert.
Yeah.
It weighs 20 grains, it's 15, and that's going to be your whole connection with your broadhead going through a critter.
Yeah.
Now we got options. So many companies are building really great insert systems. This particular one is about this long. So the longer the insert, how it goes back up in here to increase your FOC, increases the static spine. So even though my arrow is 29 inches long, with this right here, it shoots as if it's 26 and a half, 27 inches. So I've gained stiffness so that I can even gain more weight. So
FOC, by the way, if anybody's listening, and most archers know, but FOC, front of center, is T-bone.
It's the front of center percentage, meaning more weight forward. Instead of it balancing right in the center, you want to try to get it to balance closer to the front. And the number that you're trying to achieve, in my opinion, for most everything North America, like I said, like the wheelhouse person or the common man is anywhere from 15 to 20% FOC. That's what we're trying to achieve, in my opinion. So then we put a lot of weight on here. We got that 450 grain arrow. Now we're going to put 500. Now we got it weighing 520. 100 grain broadhead, 115 grains of insert and outsert over the top. So now we're at 18.2 FOC, and then we're weighing like 520 grains. So then we shoot it through not that we care what it's shooting through the meter, however, we see where we're at. And what I like to try to achieve, in my opinion, as long as you're between like 255 feet per second to about 290.
Okay.
That is a good speed for the trajectory.
For a hunting type of situation.
For hunting type situations, meaning like build the heaviest arrow with the highest FOC percentage that is going to travel in that 255 to 290 feet per second. Reason I say that is not that you can't shoot faster, but it's going to help you with penetration. It's going to help you with flight in the wind, because you got heavier FOC, which helps in the wind.
Harder to move,
and it's going to be more forgiving because you're getting the stiffness of the arrow and the weight of the up front. Like once you get weight going in a direction, it stays in direction, meaning like it's just going to be more forgiving. Like if you got a real light arrow and you have the same little bobble in your shot, because we're not like machines,
right?
It may veer off 6 inches. With a heavier FOC, you may only miss by 5.5 inches. That same little bobble. If you could
like
measure
throwing
both
a dart at a dartboard.
Yes.
Very rarely do you miss the whole board.
That's right.
Even though if you maybe you've been overserved and you throw. Unless you throw it backwards.
But you're gonna be more accurate. It's just you're gonna be more accurate. It's gonna be more forgiving. The bow's gonna perform better. It's gonna be quieter. I mean, you're just going down the list, checking off all the pros. All right. A lot of people say like, but I want to shoot 310 feet a second. But if you shoot, you can get away with. It's been my observation. Like I'm usually shooting around high 270s, right at 280. Mm-hmm. You have to shoot like 320 foot a second or faster to see a difference in your pin gap from 40 yards and in, which is where most all of us are killing deer. Don't get me wrong. Everything you see on social media, so many people are shooting 100 yards, and that's great because that builds confidence, and you may have one shot out of 1,000 at a critter that you need a 100-yard pin. But it builds confidence, and it's fun to shoot that far, and there's a wow factor. I get it.
But let's just say the 20 to 70, but you're going to be there.
That's exactly right.
You got enough housing to fit those pins.
That's correct. You got enough arrow. It's going to be within your wheelhouse on your pin gap, and it's certainly not going to help you under 40 as far as speed-wise. So if you're at that 280, you're good to out to 40 yards. Anything beyond that, you're probably going to take a more methodical shot with a laser rangefinder. You're going to know the distance, so the tightness of your pin gap is not as needed as much. And I'd rather know that I'm throwing a good penetrating, forgiving arrow down that way that's not going to be affected by wind if I do have to take a really long shot, so that I'm not being blown off the track and I'm not being served up if I have a bad wind. If I do have to take a really long shot, I've got a forgiving arrow to do that, because I'm going to know with my laser rangefinder exactly how far it is, because I'm not going to take a 65-yard shot without knowing how far it is. I mean, I'm just not going to do it.
Not going to do it.
Yeah, we're going to know it's 65 or 64 yards.
Yeah.
So then you got that. So that's my spiel on that. Now to add down a deep dive a little bit more on that, we've talked about the FOC, but something that has been real popular that it seems like a lot of people are four-fletching. They're putting four fletches back here and here. Now that goes back to the days of, we used to shoot feathers.
Turkey feathers.
We used to shoot 4-inch
Native
feathers,
American,
5-inch feathers, actual real feathers. Some guys watching this may not even know that we used to shoot feathers and that they were real feathers. I mean,
you don't even hear the word feathers anymore unless you're talking traditional. But even the aggressive compound overdraw guys, it was all feathers.
That's correct.
I remember when we started talking about vanes, I remember thinking, "Oh, vanes, what is that?"
Yeah, exactly.
It was all feathers in the 80s.
Yeah, and they worked fantastic. They shoot real good.
Oh, yeah.
They shoot real accurate. However, they're not good in the rain, and feathers would work
traveling.
Whenever you shoot past 40 yards. They had such a drag on them. They were noisy in flight.
Or I remember the feathers too. If you broke a couple,
it'd be so noisy.
It sounded like a machine gun.
Exactly. It'd still shoot good, but it would sound bad. So that's why the people got away from that, because of the drag at longer distances. So I'm asking myself, again, I'm that pro and con type of thinker. If I'm trying to build my FOC up and I'm wanting the front of that arrow heavier, why would I be putting so much more weight on the back? Why would I be putting wraps on here? Why, if I am going to shoot a lighted knock, why would I not shoot the lightest?
The lightest lighted knock.
Absolutely, the lightest knock. Yeah. I mean, me personally, I like shooting the original OEM knocks just because they're so precise. But if I am going to shoot a lighted knock, which we need to, and we do, because it's good,
it makes
outdoor
better video,
entertainment,
and you can have a better idea where you hit. Yeah.
Exactly. So I'm going to shoot the lightest and the most simplest, which I think we've been shooting those glory knocks the last couple of years. Love those
knocks.
Yep. Yeah. So with that said, we shoot the lightest possible back here. You try to choose a light vane. This is a light. It's an aerodynamical vane. It's a light vane. There's a lot of different vane manufacturers out there. You can get light and make sure it's got a little stiffness to it. But you can achieve the same steering with 3 vanes as you can with 4. With 4, you have more drag and you've added a lot of weight to the rear of the shaft, which doesn't add up to me. And I don't know if that's just a cool thing. There for a while, I remember when we used to shoot 3 and 4 inches, and then all of a sudden we started shooting 2 inches. People didn't even know why they were shooting 2 inches. It's just like the cool kids or the pro archers all shot small vanes, and I shot small vanes in tournaments and stuff, and I get that you don't want any drag, but when it comes time to have a little steering, driving a little broadhead, such like that, you need a little more steering. So I always like the 3-inch vane, longer with more surface area, so that the amount of offset or helical that you put on it steers the arrow. You can achieve that with 3 and not have to go to a 4, but people are putting It seems like that's the fad of putting
But you're
4.
not chopping the air. It's prime example. That long choppy prop on a plane is louder than the longer one, it seems to me. So you got that longer vane maybe helps facilitate a little less chop in the air. Theoretically, should be a little quieter.
Yep, and it's a little more streamlined because it's not so high off the shaft, as well as it has more surface area this way rather than, like you said, it has a chop to it. So I'm not one of those guys that say you got to do what I do, but I'm explaining why I do what I do, because I think that there's some pretty good reasonings why and principles behind that. Meaning, like, by all means, you can probably kill every deer that you ever shot with four fletches on there.
Let me fact check this. Have you ever won a bow tournament?
Yeah.
Have you ever won a world championship?
Yeah, I got lucky one time.
Did you come close to winning a state championship, or maybe you did?
I got lucky a couple times there.
Okay, did you?
Yeah.
Have you ever killed a deer?
Yeah, a few.
About a big deer. I'm talking about. I ain't talking about a Georgia. I'm talking like a big Bullarius, like a Kansas buck. Have you ever had full penetration? Have you ever killed him?
Yeah, but got lucky and did that too.
Yeah, but you've never shot an elk.
I've shot one elk. I have shot a killed elk.
Never mind.
All right.
I'm sorry. Bad questions. Never mind. Keep talking about your area. You seem that you should know something.
No, when it gets down to it, I mean, I have reasonings for doing the things that I choose to, and I like to explain it in a pro and con type way so that people understand why the madness behind that. Meaning,
is it fair to say, T-Bone, you're a legitimate, bona fide student of archery? All of it.
I love it. I mean, I love it.
That's what I think of you. I seriously do. That's why I trust you, because you're not looking at it just an opinion. You're looking at it based on everybody's looking at it. If there's the most open-minded archer out there, I really believe it's you, and I mean that.
Well, I appreciate that. But, I mean, this is not like to say that this is the only arrow that you could kill a deer with. There's so many options.
You wouldn't take that to probably Africa on your Cape Buffalo.
No. This is not for that. I'm building this for what we do around here, and what most everybody that's watching this podcast is chasing elk.
Elk.
The average guy, 65, 70 pounds, chasing elk, chasing bear, mule deer, antelope, all that. This will absolutely do it, and do it in a fashion to where you're comfortable with shooting at 60, 70 yards and still have enough horsepower in behind it. I believe
with a
so.
pin gap that's manageable.
Nobody's ever going to argue that if I did shoot a 650 grain arrow or 700 grain arrow, that by far that would hit harder. I'm a full believer in that, but in order to get something, you got to give up something.
Correct.
And I'm not willing to give up as much as it takes to shoot that. Now, when the bows become efficient enough to where I can shoot a 650 grain arrow, let's say 280, I'm in. I'm in. But until then, I'm going to shoot something that kind of checks off all the marks for everything that I might possibly be shooting or hunting and stuff like that. So that's where, that's the reasons for that. And I hope everybody looks at it as pros and cons of your decisions, rather than just like, man, I'm going to do this and see if people follow me on this, or what's the reason on that. I hope to think that I've got some factual knowledge or thought going behind it to back it up. So,
well, I've always
and then we've got gut piles to prove it too.
Gut piles. I was going to say, in your case, I mean, obviously you've won world championships, you've won state championships. You're the guy that, if you show up, we were just talking, about we need to shoot our bows more, and it's been hot. We've all been busy. Ryan Wakenig, we just got back from North Carolina. We all been traveling. We was meeting with our partner, Sheffield Financial. Cohen's just wide open every day. He's producing shows, and so it's like the last thing you do. It's like, oh man, it's 107. Hey, after we got all these responsibilities, you want to go shoot our bow, and then we come up with the idea of thinking, hey, why don't we get together and start putting $20, $50 piece in a hat? Maybe we come up here like every other Sunday and have a little friendly bow tournament. But the first thing I thought, even with your situation of being a little impaired, I'm thinking, well, this ain't fair. We're just going to be every 2 weeks throwing away and burning $50 because T-Bone's going to smoke us down most every weekend. And I think we would all know that we would be competing against you. And we was thinking about the money going to first. But anyway, with that said, one can't argue experience, and one can't argue success in what has happened. And that is kind of how I and you have always agreed. In some cases, we might maybe argue and debate certain aspects of it. But for me, why, or even you, why would I ever recommend or ask somebody to do something based on I am not doing it? In any experience I've ever seen, I've always thought, one thing you can learn about something that works is to find something that does not work in certain applications too. And because I too have been a student of archery, not in the technicality side of you, I've always been more on the death side. Not that I want to offend any new listeners, but I always was very excited to have a deer, broadside and to see if I couldn't go in one side and blow out the other. I've also been very intrigued, what if a deer is quartering to me? I've always been told that was a very inefficient shot. And so what I found is through experimentation on heavy arrows and light arrows, I still believe that is a low percentage shot, only because that bone structure, not a shoulder structure in that shoulder blade, that bony shoulder structure that makes a triangle is very hard to penetrate with a
You're
lot of different things.
You're not talking about the scapula. You're
not
talking about down there around the knuckle and the top of the leg. Yeah.
Your average scapula on this setup you're talking about is zero concern. It blows right through it. I don't need to go shoot a bunch of concrete blocks and tear up arrows because I've tore enough up on them on hundreds and hundreds of dead animals. Some of these animals on certain setups got away. I've also had the most weird, freaky things happen that is unexplainable. It's like watching Stranger Things. It's some odd phenomenon that I can't even, replicate again.
Right.
I mean, like, how did this happen? We've all shot turkeys at 20 yards and missed, and like, how did I do that? I don't know how I did that, but that's not maybe the best example. But overall, what I would say is, I'm selfish when it comes to my elk hunts. I'm very selfish when it comes to my chance to go to the Yukon or Alaska to hunt a moose that is an 1,800-pound animal. I'm very selfish when it comes to my thought of being successful when I go to Kansas. So if I'm not going to shoot it, I'm certainly not going to recommend somebody to shoot it. So when it gets to broadheads and setup, I too have followed that. I've been lighter, still found a lot of success. But I know that success. To me, it's the difference in saying I'm going on this particular deer hunt with a 243 versus a 338.
That's where I was wanting to go as far as, that's a good
I know
analogy.
what I'm up against, right?
Yeah, there's been a lot of deer killed. A lot of outlaws have killed a lot of deer with a 22 Magnum.
Yes.
Is that what you want to hunt with?
That's right.
Absolutely not.
And I'm sure there's somebody out there that has not have very little failure with that.
Yeah.
Maybe they're shooting them in the head. Maybe they're saying I'm focusing on 100 yards and in, and I'm shooting.
We're not
them in
saying
the eyeball.
that's right. We're just saying it can get it done.
It can get it done. So, prime example. I've never been a huge fan of, say, a 243.
Yes.
Have I killed deer with 243 and been in camp with many people that's killed very large bucks and deer with 243? Yes. But you got to know that you better be precision. You better take your time. Look for a broadside shot, especially on those bigger whitetails, and make sure you're hitting that soft mass part of that animal. I've seen elk. I've seen moose killed with 270s. I've seen plenty of elk shot with 270s, the 6.5s. But you better have a little bit more thought process into that shot, like we should on everything. However, you start getting up to those 300 mags, maybe a 338, I think is an unbelievable round for a lot of things. You got a pretty good trajectory. You also got a pretty solid knockdown, but guess what you have on the back end? It's going to knock cornbread hell out of you and pull that trigger. So is that the best for women and kids? And will that get in your mind when you're shooting that gun, even for a grown adult?
Which will affect accuracy.
So now you're going to have to depend more on this bone-breaking, big bore type of gun.
Because you didn't like the gun and it made a bad shot and then you hit
nervous.
Where you shouldn't. It comes back to always, I'll say this, and it builds confidence, and accuracy always wins.
Agreed.
Meaning, like, that's the number one thing with me. Like, no matter what's going on, I always think accuracy always wins. So if I can get forgiveness, I know a lot of people don't like using the word forgiveness, but I believe that.
Meaning,
like, we're not like a machine. I believe in forgiveness. I believe in putting every odds in my favor, meaning like the higher FOC helps me in the wind. It's proven. I mean, FOC is a part of Olympic arrow builds. I mean, you can ask Brady. I always jack his name up. Ellison.
Yeah, Brady. Brady.
Yeah, you can honestly.
Stud
you can.
archer,
Yeah. Oh yeah. You can ask them. All the Olympic archers. They're shooting
40 and
45, 50-pound recurves. But it affects in the wind. They have to shoot in the wind. They want that weight up front.
And they're shooting the same distance, correct?
Same distance every time. However, they don't want wind drift. They're watching that flag and stuff. And what helps them not to drift so much is a heavier weight up front.
Yeah.
I use the same analogy. What FOC is if you took a mop handle by itself and you slung it. We know that it would go end over end, whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. And then you put a 2-pound weight on there, and then you do the same thing, try to sling it, it will never make a rotation because that weight on the front end is like Thor's hammer. It's going to be driven. It's going to pull it around, and the weight is going to be driven, and it's never going to make one rotation. So why wouldn't you take that same analogy and make sure that your arrow is absolutely the best it can possibly be, from the components all the way to the nock, and that all these little check marks that we're doing as far as forgiveness, as far as accuracy, as far as aligned, why would you not use every one of those to build the perfect arrow? Because you said it best in a G5 commercial years ago, and I don't even know if you remember this, but as soon as you cut that arrow loose, the burden is off you. As soon as you shoot that arrow, all things are off. It's just like, it's a moment in time. It's like, man, I hope everything goes right. Why would you leave that? Because once you cut that arrow loose, you have no control. You're trusting. So why wouldn't you build your projectile between the broadhead, the components, the arrow, the straightness of the arrow, the thickness of the wall all the way around, the consistency of the spine, the way the arrow's fletched, the degree of fletch, the nock, the way the arrows are cut on the end, the way they're squared on the end, all of that, every little bit is splitting a hair. Why would you not make this one of your most important investments and your important things ever, so that the insert is protected, it won't blow out the side, so that you have an outsert over the outside, so that when it hits, if it hits a rib wrong, if it hits a shoulder and glances off, it's not going to blow out? Because as soon as that broadhead is disconnected from the arrow, you're not killing that animal.
Correct.
You want it to stay together. You want everything to be precise, so that when you cut it loose and it's headed towards that animal, it's like confidence. I have built a bad arrow. You didn't just pick up 3 different size arrows and you're just hurling it down through there like, man, I hope it does its job. You've done it. You've built a precision arrow. So why would you skimp on that? I always talk about that. You need to build a bow on a budget. You don't. 3 things that you don't want to skimp on is a good rest. So because if you pay $400 for one of these high-end sites, which are nice and they do good, but a $400 site is not going to make up for a really crappy rest. Mm-hmm. So you got to have a good rest that sends your projectile downrange. A good release, which is precision made and allows you to execute a good shot, a good confident shot. And then the projectile and broadhead, making sure that it is topmost. Everything else is optional, meaning like you can skimp a little bit on a stabilizer. You could take your arrows to the stand in a 5-gallon bucket if you want to. You don't even have to have a quiver. Sight, you could actually put a toothpick on there and aim really well. I mean, I'm not saying you do that, but if the budget won't hold it and you're sitting there saying, how do I need to invest in this bow setup to get going this year? A good rest, a good release. The foundation is a good rest, a good release, and a great arrow, because it's going to...
I believe that.
Yeah,
100%,
accuracy.
T-Bone.
I mean, I don't care how good an archer you are. I don't care how good of arrows you got. You can always get a little bit better. That's why you should have great components, because when they're off, you're going to see it. Oh, I missed a 1/4 inch. All my groups, and then all of a sudden, because of a crappy arrow, you're shooting like this. Whereas if you got everything together, it's going to be accuracy. And
absolutely.
Accuracy always wins.
Yes.
Over speed, over anything.
I don't disagree. That accuracy comes with that accuracy of consistently being accurate with this particular.
And it helps your
setup.
confidence.
Yes.
And you're the king of confidence. I mean, to a fault almost.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
To a fault, because I've given you credit all the time. You're the king of confidence. Your confidence will absolutely has killed more critters than anything, because there's been some times I'm like, me, as anal as I am, you're going to the woods and you're like, oh man, I'm good enough. I've got 2 vanes on there and 3 different type of broadheads, and then but your confidence is just overrides all that, and you get it done big time. Whereas me, maybe the anal guy I am, I'm sitting there cringing like, man, I could not go to the woods with that air. I could not. I mean, not to say that I know it would work.
Yeah.
It's just
I agree. The way I've always equated it, if you have confidence in your ability.
But the accuracy builds confidence.
Accuracy builds confidence. So if I've been shooting something, let's just say in this case, my bow setup is a 243. And have I ever been bit? You dang right I've been bit. I've got countless times. 90% of those times are not even on video. Because it was back in the days in those 80s when me and a guy named Shane Collier had big buck trade posts, and we were true experimentation. I mean, man, I don't know. Like
no
I said,
ballistic gels.
They
it was
wasn't no
prairie
ballistic
dogs.
gel. It was prairie dogs. It was does in Georgia. We didn't have any money or budget to travel out of state.
Not to interrupt you, but we've told that story so many times where, the guy called up and needed something eradicated. And it was all legal, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah. But he'd call up, and then Shane's got this store, Big Buck Trading Post, and I had my store, Archery Unlimited.
And two most popular stores
and not even
areas.
in the same town. Good friends. We talk all the time. We'd build bows with each other. Me and Shane did that all the time. And he'd call up the store and talk to Shane. Shane would shut the store down. Lose money to
go see what a new
and there goes Waddell and Shane off to try to eradicate something, to test something.
And T-Bone, when I tell you, this was before any partnerships, this was before any sponsors, or we had a chance to make a living. We made a living. I was working for him, going to Columbus Technical University, trying to learn how to be a heating and air man, knowing that if I wasn't doing anything other than working in the hunting industry, I was probably going to fail. And every bit of my check in those days went on the index card at Big Buck Trading Post. And literally, I do remember opening that store at 10 o'clock. We'd get a call at 11 o'clock. We would shut the store down, and Shane owned this store, but he paid for this inventory to resell like you did or any other retail. We would take a pack of each broadheads. I'm not going to confine where we were eradicating things, but we would take a couple broadheads, take 2013s, 2213s. This is before the carbon shafts. 2413s, and we'd go get some American Eagle.
What's funny?
2117.
Most folks listening.
Most people don't even know what that is. But we would take the lightest to the heaviest, and you know what we did? We eradicated with all of them.
Yeah.
But at that particular time, Shane and I were unbelievably efficient archers, and we just had a lot of fun. And sometimes we'd be disappointed. I'll never forget one time, and this is a broadhead that might ring a bell with people. I remember there was a broadhead called a wapiti, and it was very much like a swacker type of design where it come open, and it was devastating. And at the time, it was one of the first, I want to say, 1.5-inch type cuts, a really big, broadhead. But it went in and it opened kind of on the skin. So the broadhead had to go into the animal and open on the other side of that first layer of fat or skin. So looking back, technically, there's a lot of pros and cons of that, and we can dig into some of these mechanical versus fixed versus beveled. But I never forget, there was a feral hog, just a feral hog sitting there, and this feral hog had become very mean. And so I'm essentially letting you know that it's pretty much an animal. So this is, Waddell and Collier Pest Control, and we're coming. It's just not a roach. It's a freaking pig. And I never forget, we argued about who's going to shoot it. So this pig's out there about 20, 25 yards. Shane's like, no, dude, this is my broadhead. Rochambeau. He shoots this hog right tight in behind the shoulder. And he even said, I'm shooting it tight in the shoulder as I can. I want to see if this thing will blow through him, if it curls the broadhead. We didn't shot bricks. Yeah. Shane wasn't a rich man. I hope Shane hears this. I remember Shane shoots this hog, and this hog takes off running fast as it can, and is running toward this farming situation, and it's running, and it makes it about 70 yards. And the whole time it's running, there's blood coming out of this hog. It looks like something off The Exorcist. And I remember thinking, wow, look at the blood. And I looked at Shane, he looked at me, he said, dude, I can't believe he went that far. He was so disappointed. How did he make it that far? I said, I don't know, but I promise you we will get no blood on my hands when we get some bacon out of this sucker. And so from there, we went over. There was a broadhead called Puckett's, and I remember we tried those things. And we did everything from Muzzy, 3 blades, 4 blades, the Wasp to everything. And then obviously, now there's a whole plethora. That was before the rage. That was back when Rocky Mountain and Bruce Berry had the Rocky Mountain, the Berry broadheads, and then he come out with the Rocky Mountain Sniper was the original rage.
That's right.
And so anyway, looking back at that, and I only say that not to make somebody think different about me or you, but the student of the game, and what always really gelled with you and I was kind of that rough around the edges John Daly of archery as it pertains to golf, where you were more of the Tiger Woods, the more of the really precise when it comes to thinking. Sure, we laugh and cut up a lot, but I was more the guy to where, hey man, I just need a club, to play golf. Yeah. Well, I can't play golf unless it's this, and it's got to be this precise thing, and it's got to be this. Otherwise, I have no confidence. So my confidence never come in my equipment. My confidence always came within myself.
Yeah.
So you can put it on two different ways. Now, if you combine the right equipment, the right setup.
Well, I think not to pat each other on the back, but your way of thinking has complimented me and kind of brought me down. You know what I mean. I've learned a lot from you, and I hope that you've learned a lot from me. You know what I mean? You know, see what I'm saying?
It's made it. It's honestly like musicians.
Yeah, and Nick as well. You know, I mean,
Nick
like we all three is gelled, and hopefully that's rubbed off on.
And you learn each other's abilities and what makes people float. I mean, I've seen you do it, and Nick hears this, he is gonna freak. But I remember vividly, we was in Kansas one time shooting a bow, and me and you shooting lights out that day. And it's kind of windy in Stafford, Kansas. It was Tommy Mills County.
I remember this.
We're just shooting, and me and you are shooting. And Nick starts off the day. He's tacking, right? He's tacking like he's shooting right with us. But in the juncture of cutting up and selling whoop tickets and, all right, 80 yards, come on, baby, first, let's shoot. Well, Nick starts shooting a little erratic,
Yep.
right? And Cohen's already laughing here in the story.
Oh, yeah, I know exactly.
He's shooting a little erratic. And T-Bone said, "God!" And we're talking, and we look like, "Dang, what's happening? You getting tired?" "No, dude, my bow got bumped. It fell over when we get there." And I was like, and you looked at me, I looked at you. So anyway, I said, "Nick, I don't think your bow got bumped. I think we've been out here for 20 minutes and we've been shooting. We're tired. It's cold. We've been hunting every day. It's 5 days in the hunt. I'm just put it up. You're good."
Yeah.
"I'm telling you, dude." He said, "My bow got bumped. I need to move my sight." And you grabbed his bow.
He walked to pull arrows.
I
said, I'll take a look at it.
Let me take a look at it. And T-Bone had a wrench, and you pretended, and he said, "I've got it right. Try it now." Next shot. "Thank you, man. Fixed it." You didn't do nothing. But
that was the Allen wrench placebo.
So T-Bone's the master of wrench. You fixed his bow, but the whole time
we all knew that. He just needed tweaked
we know
on
Nick.
his head.
He's our friend. You know me. And
we've done that several times with him.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, yeah.
And you can start chasing stuff, and I even look back on some of the failures I've had, because there's no way, in our case, it's not like 15, 20, 100 animals, that we've shot. I don't say it to brag, but I mean, you're probably talking thousands. I don't know. And with a bow and arrow, and
we've had this before, this conversation, and I know exactly where you're going. But not only that, is like we study everyone else too. It means so much to us, meaning like, one, we're firsthand, but I can't help it. I'm dissecting other people's shots. I'm dissecting.
Me too.
I mean, like on the Outdoor Channel, stuff you see on YouTube, anything. I'm dissecting all that stuff, and I'm just gaining knowledge and learning and stuff like that. So it all helps, and I think all of that has come down to, I'm not saying this is a be-all, end-all, but where I'm at right now, as we're recording this right now, I believe this is where we're at. Don't get me wrong. If you're never going to shoot past 25 yards or 30 yards, absolutely. Build you
why
a 700.
Not, dude?
Yeah, exactly.
Shoot 180 feet or sack it with the baddest Hoyt you can buy.
But the guy that just bought a bow last year, that's zipping around on YouTube, I would like for them to know that this is not, the extreme is not the be-all, end-all. And through our experience over 20, 30, 40 years of killing stuff, and the light is not the be-all, end-all, this is something that is attainable, this is what you can cover, a wide array. This is a do-all, everything type of arrow that we're talking about building. Absolutely, if you're just going to shoot hogs at 20, 25 yards, build you a big old heavy arrow and just slock for Tim Wells, slock a darn spear at them. If you want to go to Cape Buffalo, you're going to need to study Dr. Ashby and take a lot away from the Dr. Ashby, but you can dial that back and gain a lot of things in another area and have a complete system, so to speak, for the average guy, what I'm talking about. And then you got a great arrow. That's, just to sum up what we talked about. So I don't want to discredit anybody's information of heavy arrows do penetrate. Absolutely do. Single bevel broadheads tend to be the best for high-end popping bones, like an oyster shell type pop. Absolutely, I agree with that. However, coming back to what we're shooting, there's a lot of great broadheads on there. There's a lot of broadhead. You got to have sharp broadheads. I highly recommend you got to have sharp bread. You need sharp broadheads. But whether you're a fixed blade broadhead or a mechanical broadhead, there's only about one thing that I jump on a bandwagon and say not to shoot. I'm not a fan of mechanicals that go in and have to fold back over
like
themselves.
that old one
Yeah,
I was describing.
Yeah, the old pucket and stuff like that.
It works, but
if it's a rear deploying, I have no qualms about it at all. And in fixed blade broadheads, they speak for themselves. Absolutely, there's some little niche things that are better than others, but sharp blades are always essential. Make sure you keep your blades sharp. But if we're talking about broadheads, why would you not? Because I'm saying this talking about the single bevel. Single bevel, by all means. If you're shooting hogs at 20 yards, which have a thick,
300-pound Russian boar trying to get through that shield.
Big, and or a Cape buffalo or a moose that you know that you're not going to shoot past 30 yards. That may be the best choice of arrow for you. I'm not going to ever argue with that.
Stay out of the guts.
Stay out of the guts.
Crunch up in there. Make sure you get double lung. Get through those ribs. Get through that cage.
Tree stands, and you're hunting in ground blinds, and you're doing what 95% of everybody's hunting in America for the average guy we're talking about. You tweak that based off of your draw length and stuff. Why would you not shoot? You got a good heavy arrow. You got a good high FOC arrow. And why would you not shoot a expandable that's, when it flies in flight, we're talking about aerodynamics. We're talking about an all-steel ferrule, and we're talking about something that's extremely aerodynamic, so therefore it's not going to cause the arrow to dip or dive, even though you do got high FOC and forgiveness. You got the right direction and the right offset on your vanes. You've chosen everything correctly. It's flying great. Why would you not shoot something that is so aerodynamic that the blades are exposed, that, let's just say, worst case scenario, they can't open. You can glue them.
In my mind, I don't know if the camera can pick up on this mega meat here.
Yeah.
But what if you completely super glued or took aluminum and welded and TIG welded that together? How does
the blades are exposed. They're extremely sharp. It's not a huge cutting diameter, but this is nearly the cutting diameter as a lot of these fixed blade broadheads that everybody are shooting.
Double bevel. That's right.
Yeah, or where they're shooting. Some of the most popular fixed blade broadheads that shoot so accurate, it's because they got tiny holes. They're a 1-inch cut.
Yeah.
Well, that's that. So
that's that plus a blade.
That's 3 blades. Yeah, because most of them are 2 blades.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so now we're getting 3 blades. So you got more surface area, more massive hemorrhaging. But here's the beauty of it. Wow. So now it deploys.
Look at that.
And now we're a 2-inch hole with the blade angle below 42 degrees so that it's slicing.
Yeah.
It flew accurate, so therefore your groups were tighter and you was able to hit more accurately than you would if something like an 1.5 inch cut up there and you're knuckleballing down through there because you didn't take the time to tune your arrows and tune your broadheads. Now you've got an all-steel broadhead, the 3 blades. I know this goes back to the old commercial that we did. It's not a slice. It's not a sliver. You got 3 independent wound channels that is a flop that's going to allow more blood on the ground, and it's a massive 2-inch hole. But let's just say a little bit of wind did catch your well-tuned arrow. Let's just say Waddell got a little bit of nervousness, and you slung one in the guts.
Yeah.
I would like to know that I got a 2-inch hole with 3 cuts in the guts and grabbed a liver than I would a little tiny 1-inch fixed blade.
Well, and think about this, T-Bone. I mean, so, and as an example, here's, like if I'm illustrating this triangle. So in reality, a lot of these big bones is probably, it could be argued about the size of this hex wrench.
Correct.
So if you think about it, the liver, the guts, the lungs, the heart and lungs, you got this triangle in here of a hard bone that when you were talking about this FOC and we're talking about these 700 grain arrows or whatever it is that's the cool fad or being preached and you're not a man if you're not shooting this. All right, well, maybe you got enough air to hit this and blow through it. Maybe with this double bevel. This
single bevel.
Single bevel. But guess what? The chances of you getting up and hitting this, you've got low percentages of finding that anyway. You get through the scapula, it's going to blow through anyway with the same situation. But you got all this back here, which, by the way, a gut shot deer is a dead animal. Never is anybody attempting to shoot in a gut. Never is anybody attempting to hit liver.
Yeah.
But in reality, from anywhere in the middle of this deer, from gut in front of the hound back, if you make an error, then guess what? You're going to have a heck of a lot better efficiency and blood and trauma with this chunk. And guess what? Then if you get up in this scapula, not the scapula, but this bone.
Yeah, the upper part of the shoulder
I'm a
bone.
firm believer that, yes, the only way you possibly get through it and break enough and hemorrhage enough, especially on a Bularius whitetail, these whitetails that on the hoof are 260, 270.
Yes.
These huge Iowa bucks, some in Kansas that, Saskatchewan, that are just mammoth.
Yes.
And they've got this bone, and maybe you double it, and maybe it's 2 inches in diameter, and it runs triangularly across in front, not necessarily in the vitals, in front. So if you hit in that triangle and crunch it in between with dead accuracy, let me tell you something, you've got a death sentence to that deer like no other. I don't care if he's size of a mammoth elephant, son. He's buying a parking ticket quick. If you hit him in that perfect spot, I will tell anybody a 300 grain arrow out of a 45, 50-pound bow, that animal is dead. But if you go in for edge of safety, this animal is going to be hard. If you do hit this bone, gigs up. People say, well, you wounded him. You did wound him. You didn't even kill him. That deer is going to shake that off like we do a red wasp bite.
Yeah.
So you're not going to even kill him. So I'm not saying you aim for that, but why set up your whole bow to break this bone, which is hard to hit? You could shoot the rest of your life trying to hit this bone and might not.
Correct.
It might not. But you shoot enough, you're eventually going to pull your shot. Oh, my God. How many times you come back like, I think I pulled it back. I'm hoping I got liver. Got it. And then you smell your air and you got a little gut. Now, people are quick to criticize, well, that's because he didn't practice and he shouldn't have took that shot. Man, dude, let me tell you something. I've had animals walk up and they're 20 yards top pin. I know that, and it's a 250-pound animal. And it doesn't happen as much now, but in my early bow hunt career, I remember hitting a big deer, and I ended up finding him. And I remember thinking, what happened? And I can tell you what happened. I couldn't breathe. I don't remember if the deer was a 10-pointer, 8-pointer. I was shaking like a dead-gum R. Kelly at the Kids' Choice Awards. I was nervous. I was sweating. And I don't even remember where I hit him until I got down and got my air, and I smelled guts. And I think, man, I must have pulled this shot.
Yeah.
And back in those days, I think I had a waltz broadhead. I ended up finding the deers. Gave him a day before I even went and looked. So I got lucky. So in this case, give me that mega meat, and I'd have still found him with a mega beat, but it sure would have been nice to have that type of blow through.
Exactly. Whereas,
and wouldn't you say too, if let's say you get close to that shoulder bone and it hits that, one of those blades hit that bone, and somebody blows that blade off and it breaks it off.
So
what did you damage? You still come close to hitting that bone, but you still killed this animal because it's right in the juice, right?
Yeah, and it boils back to the higher percentage shots. Something that's higher percentage shots, meaning like you want accuracy on your side, you want forgiveness on your side, and then that's a higher percentage shot, because people think, well, it just opens my group a little bit. Well, no. So what are you going to do? You're gonna try to build an arrow for failure, meaning like if hitting the leg bone is failure, you're going to build an arrow for failure.
That's correct.
I would rather build an arrow for success, the bigger area of success, because, like you said, if you did shoot a really heavy arrow and you did hit that bone, you probably would go through, or there's a fine line that you could, but if you're within reason of everything else that everybody shoots, no matter if you're shooting 350 grain arrow or you're shooting a 550 grain arrow, and you dead center that knuckle of the deer and that bone, where you're talking about, you're not going through. If you dead centered it, you're not going through. You're not going through.
It's not going through. As a matter of fact, I could even argue the point that you might be out of the vitals anyway.
Exactly. Depending on the angle.
Unless you shot it a quarter and two.
Depending on the angle,
you
you're
might
exactly
be completely
right.
out of the vitals. What did you accomplish?
So that ain't nowhere to aim anyway. And if I'm going to aim precisely at a hair on an animal, which we all should do, and we would spend more time on ourselves, making ourselves more like a machine and more accurate, you've got a forgiving setup. You've put all the knowledge and built yourself a jam-up projectile of an arrow and broadhead, and you've got all the best equipment, and you sit there and watch it, and you don't go practice and build yourself up. That's one thing I will say for Cameron Haynes. Shoots his bow every day. Even if it's a couple shots.
That's right.
He is one with that bow.
That's exactly right.
You should be one with that bow. So many people spend so many time. If they take their time away from the YouTube channel and go fire a few arrows, they'd be better off than trying to learn. You know what I'm saying? Once you got the fundamentals, Put the fundamentals back onto you. Make sure that you're a better shot. Make sure that you are autopilot. You are practicing the biology of death so that you have the confidence like a Michael Waddell, or you have the knowledge to where when you are pulling back, it's just like a blackout. And all of a sudden that deer is dead. Everything you've done, all the studying you've done, all the shooting you've done it 100 times before you go to work in the morning. Go out there and fire your 3 arrows, walk to the truck, don't even pull them. Come back, and when you get home from work, pull them, shoot 3 more arrows. Do that every day or every other day. You'll be lots better off than sitting there staring at a YouTube channel for and trying to learn something on the internet. Once you've got the fundamentals and you've built yourself a good system, practice with it. Shoot that bow.
Becoming one. And you know what we find is when we're talking about extremes, typically to the extreme on one end to the other when it comes to equipment is never possibly the best thing. That middle road. However, if you want to look at extremes and you want to dig into personalities, I think the personalities and that confidence with you becoming an extreme personality and this confidence in finding what works for you is where you become insane, and that's where history is written on you. What I mean by that, I'm a big guitar enthusiast, huge guitar enthusiast. Take Eddie Van Halen. Eddie Van Halen did things that the music theory said it's not doable.
Exactly.
He rewrote it.
Exactly.
And take a Ted Nugent. I can go with a Billy Gibbons, Prince, amazing guitar player, Jimi Hendrix, Stevie Ray Vaughan. Stevie Ray Vaughan played the heaviest strings than anybody out there. Stevie Ray Vaughan and Jimi Hendrix played a guitar, mostly Stratocasters, single coil pickups, and the sound that they got of that was not what a single coil pickup was supposed to sound like. It sounded deep and dark, bluesy. B.B. King, a great blues player, played Les Pauls and Gibsons with humbuckers. He made the sounds of what this guitar is supposed to be like. What did Stevie Ray and Hendrix do? They bent the rules. Their confidence overrode the technicality of their own equipment. They played it behind their back. They did things, and it was amazing. And guess what? You might not even play a guitar, but I bet you know who Jimi Hendrix is.
Oh, yeah.
I bet you look at somebody like Elvis Presley, you can't sing and dance and shake your hip and play songs like that. So I'm not saying that always applies to archery, but I'm telling you, if you want to be extreme, find extremity in you, in your ability, and your accuracy, not on your equipment. Because what I will say, and I was going to say it earlier, if I look back on all the success and then I look and find the failures, I would say in those failures, which luckily the last several years, based on having experience and a lot of got piles under my belt and knowing my confidence and finding extremism within me and knowing how to push my limits, every year it changes. Some years I'm in a little better shape. Some years I've shot my bow. Some years I like the model of my bow better and I like my setup. And I'm ready for that 80, 90-yard shot. It is just as quick as I am for the 30. Other days I might be with Cohen or a cameraman and the elk is 60 yards and I'm hesitant because I know that I'm not there this particular situation. Now give me 2 weeks in camp where I got nothing to do but shoot. Maybe prior to that I didn't spend time with that bow and that setup. We switch every year. And I'm in a situation where I don't have my confidence there. Give me 2 weeks of shooting and I might be right back. However, I missed my opportunity because I needed that confidence then on that 80-yard shot. All right, now you start looking at all these situations and you look at the success and the failures. What I've got to guarantee, and if people will look hard, I would say out of those failures, I guarantee you 2 to 3% or maybe 2%. Maybe less is because of your equipment. The rest is on you.
Absolutely.
And I think there's a problem, and it's getting worse in America. The accountability, it's getting worse across the world, is it couldn't have been me.
Not just hunting.
And I think that's where I'm thinking in everything.
Oh,
but
yeah.
in this case, it's archery. It's easy to say, this broadhead didn't open. I'd have killed that deer if that broadhead would have opened. I'm going back to single and fixed. And then all of a sudden, the next 2 weeks, you talk to the same guy. God dang, man, I had it, but, well, fixed blade bit me. I had a deer and some thick stuff, hit a branch, and had too much blade out there and knocked me off. Or it drifted in the wind. And the last thing you'll hear some of these personalities say is like, what happened? Dude got nervous, pulled my shot. Or I don't know, but I pulled my shot. Or, maybe I hit too far up in that bone.
Yeah.
Or hit too forward and got up in that leg bone, and they didn't get any penetration. Well, no, what the standard is, dude, that air you talking about is too light, T-bone. I went with that 500 grain air, son. Didn't get no penetration. Well, where'd you hit him? Right in that leg bone. Like, well, son, you missed a vital.
Yeah.
So what do you say amongst all this, T-bone, for overall archery, for people that, and I see it on YouTube, and it kind of, I'm taken back by it. It's like, even this era we talking about, which if you come from this 80s, where we're shooting these old
overdraws
PSCs,
and
point blanks, Brownings, these Brown Mirage, and into these Hoyts, into these different bows where we're shooting overdraws, shooting these 2013, shooting 2213s, and then, you know, it seemed like back in the day that 2413, man, I had Chuck Adams' picture on it, that Super Slam, Autumn Orange. That's nostalgic. Well, I've shot, in the early years, I've shot a lot of elk with that, never shot a moose, shot several elk with it. Tons of deer with all those setups. But now you get into this situation. So if you look at a 500 grain arrow, that 500 grain arrow we're shooting now is quite a bit heavier than probably some of the arrows we were shooting back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
However, there's people out there now say 500 grains, that ain't even a man arrow.
Yeah.
What do you say? How do you respond to that? Because I feel like that's inaccurate, if you ask me.
I mean, the evolution of the efficiency of the bows has what made us get to that point where, you know, I don't think someone can say, you know, it all comes back to like what we're talking about. There's a window, in my opinion, you know, like I said, heaviest weight that you can pull, take that and shoot the heaviest arrow and higher FOC that you can get in that comfort range of the speed. I'd like to see someone, rather than saying, okay, this is the arrow I built, all right, this is what I'm going to shoot, you shoot through the meter, and it's like 310 foot a second, you happy? You know, and then that's it. That's just, I would rather someone say, you know
it's
what?
A little deeper than that.
I would like for someone to say, I'm going to take that energy rather than shooting 310 foot a second and telling somebody that I can shoot 310 foot a second. I'm going to build a more responsible arrow. I'm going to get as good a penetrating and higher FOC arrow as I possibly can. And if that weight starts climbing, and you end up at 600 grains, that's fine. Like we went back to, meaning like I'm pulling 72 pounds. And if that bow is efficient enough and forgiving enough, and I'm able to shoot a 650 grain arrow, the speeds that I want, you know, I'm not a speed freak, but there is an area that I want to achieve. I don't want to shoot 200 foot a second. I do want to shoot like 260 to 290. You know, and if it's a real heavy arrow, if it's the guy that's a little shorter on draw length and he's shooting 255, that's quite all right. You may not be able to shoot the 90 yards, but you'll be good at 80 and 70. But that's what I'm trying to build is I'm trying to interject, meaning like if I could pull, and hats off another thing to Cameron Haynes. He's shooting 90 pounds. A lot of people gets on to him for shooting 90 pounds, and that ain't the norm. It ain't the norm. But he trains with it every day.
That. I respect that.
No disrespect to Cameron Haynes whatsoever. He's a little shorter on draw.
He's not
just
a
what
big
it is.
guy. He's not a big guy. I don't think he's doing that for macho. I think he's doing it for his efficiency. I do the same.
I really do. The only thing I would say about his builds is he's shooting the full metal jackets, which are heavy overall. I would like to see him, just judging from afar, 90 pounds. He seems to pull it just fine.
That'd be a penetrating machine.
He's getting unbelievable. Meaning, if
what is he, 27-inch draw probably?
I would guess. I would say so.
Too.
So he's a little short on draw. So he's shooting a heavy arrow, which is great. Only thing I would tweak on his system, just
he might be listening to us in his damn ear pods, run that marathon barefooted. We love you, Cameron.
The only thing I'd say is like I might go with a lighter, stiffer arrow.
Yeah.
And go with a heavier up front, heavier like a system up front to increase his FOC. Shoot the same heavy weight that he's shooting, but rather than having overall length of the arrow, kind of tighten it up.
Well,
what
I love about Cameron, he is a student of this. Like if we sit down now, Cameron, he wouldn't get me outside to go run with him, maybe a mile because I need to get in better shape. But when it comes to hanging out and talking, Cameron just loves this stuff. He's eat up with it.
Yeah, I mean,
that's why Rogan loves him. That's why these guys.
Sure.
And so you're right. When I look at Cameron, a very efficient bow hunter, very efficient shot. And it's funny, as we were thinking about this, one thing come to mind, and I definitely wanted to bring it because anybody might be watching this. There's a clip on YouTube where I had an arrow bounce off a buck. And I want to go even through that particular year. And you know,
you talking about the one in Kansas?
The one in Kansas.
Yeah.
And matter of fact, leading up to the deer that I killed,
I wouldn't even say it was a bounce off. It was more of a.
It was a deflection.
Shear.
It was a weird.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of things. Obviously, when a camera videos something, one thing can appear one thing. Prime example, your typical video hunt, the camera typically your arrow shooting right down the lens, but it's got to come into this lens from the left to right.
That's right.
So there's an optical illusion. It feels like if it comes in a certain way in the way it hits, you can see a perfect shot, and sometimes it'll look a little back based on which side of the screen, or vice versa. It might look perfect. In reality, it's not as perfect based on where it comes in because it's got to come in from the left or right.
Right.
And so looking back, but this particular year, This gets back to there was somewhere in between personal and equipment here that threw me off this year. So when I trace back, and I thought long and hard about that. A lot of people diss broadhead, they diss me, shooting too light air, doing this and that.
Well,
so,
and before you get into this, remember that there's a lot to be considered on this, meaning like, one, we get to videotape so that we can
really
analyze and dissect it like nobody's business. And now we're discussing this as a hindsight 2020, but when we're discussing this, we're learning, we're understanding, and we're sharing that with these guys.
I still don't even have all the answers, but if I trace back that particular year, I was shooting the lightest air, I will agree, that I'd ever shot. Really back since the 2213s, back in the 80s, honestly. So it was a new era. I was trying it out. So I was in experiment mode. I was very accurate with that era. I mean, I was as accurate as anybody. I shot it that year. I was shooting good, 80, 90 yards. I was at one with this bow. I felt very confident. Now, here is something that threw me off. So typically, as you talk about Cameron Haynes, talk about you, and we talk about this trajectory, pin gaps, with me, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And so I'm in that mode. So I've got just all these gut piles, all these dead animals, elk, moose, bear, you name it, all these things, deer. And so in that, I'm like, dude, it's going to be on my ability to shoot this particular setup every year. This particular setup, a new model Hoyt came out. I always, because I, like Cameron, I've got a 28-inch draw. And now I'm assuming Cameron shoots. I'd be surprised. He's not a super tall guy. So I'm assuming
he's not over 28, I wouldn't think at all.
No way. No. Well, I've always said, look at my arms. I broke it in a motocross accident. So my left arm, I'm 6'2", 3 type of guy. So by true rule,
you should be 29 and a half or better.
30. I should be a 29, 30-inch draw. But I shoot a 28-inch draw. And so in that, how I've always compensated, being I'm a bigger frame guy, how I get to this point, like you said, the most efficient way to do this is not lighting your air, is to crank up your weight.
That's right.
It changes a lot in your trajectory, your pin gap. So a lot of times I'm not even looking at how much I draw. I'm not even looking at anything. Being a hunter who looks at things, I'm looking at my pin gap and my efficiency, the way it feels, and I would rather get to where I'm drawing a little more. So depending on the model of a bow, I always get the heavier limbs, and typically I'm between 76 and 78 is my hunting weight.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not doing that just to say, dude, I shoot 78, I'm close to 80.
Right.
I do that because I'm 28-inch draw.
Compensating for a little shorter.
Compensating to get into your theory of physics, all right?
Yep.
That particular year, brand new bow, if you remember, first year Hoyt sent me a 60-pound Hoyt. 60-pound Hoyt. The first year, and I remember shooting this thing like, dude, it's like butter, man. I'm like trick shot. I'm thinking of some kid's bow, right? So I'm sitting here at 60 pounds. I've never shot an animal. Even back in 1984, my dad bought me a Martin Pro Eliminator, and I was 13. Well, I paid $200, and my dad put $50 with it. It was like a whole bow you could buy for $250, $300.
Good times.
And dude, I walked out of there. Sucker had 80-pound limbs. I'm 12 years old. I can't even draw it back. I had to go work out. I swear to you, my dad would have me working. I was drawing and doing real tricks, and Dad give me shovels. I couldn't even draw it back, and it was like 30-inch draw then. I'm 12 year old. I didn't cut my ear off.
I know.
Because it really wasn't. Everybody was learning locally.
Oh, sure.
And so looking back.
Think about the compound was just invented in the early 70s.
Yeah.
We're learning.
This is 84 probably.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know, 83, 84.
Yeah.
And so anyway, people can correct me, because whenever that Martin Pro Eliminator, I thought,
oh yeah,
sucker bend around looked like a spare tire, son. When you bend that thing around, you remember it was just round. My dad had 100-pound limbs, I remember, and he was pulling 115 pounds. I never forget that. Shane Collier checked it, and the lowest we could get my bow was like 77. I'm 12. I'm like, it's like, you know what? No, like, well, we can change the limbs, which cost. It's like, well, that's all I got. I mean, you want it? So I'm buying it. If you don't, man, it's gonna be sold because there are people coming to buy them.
Oh yeah.
Long story short, this particular year, I'm shooting the lightest air I've ever shot, and I'm shooting the lightest pound I've ever shot. Does that make me wrong? What makes me wrong, it took me out of my element of what my efficiency and my don't think about things. So in that, in the deer that it bounced off, that was kind of weird and freaky. I don't think I could have shot that light air in that situation 10 more times and not had a different outcome. It was something odd, something weird. That was one of those things, and we call it the Voodoo Swamp. But if you go back and you go to the deer that Cohen and I ended up killing, was another big, large, mature whitetail. Didn't have the biggest rack, but a really nice whitetail. I shot him on the last evening of the last day we were to hunt. This particular deer come in. At this point, I got a 30-yard shot, zero nervous, gonna smoke this sucker down. Pull back, put it top of his heart. When I shoot, I hit him dead center of that scapula, center ways up, kind of 3/4 down from a 20-foot stand. smoke. I go to Cohen, we bump fist, smoked him. I mean, kill this deer, hammer dead. I knew I crunched his shoulders. I've never been one to aim toward the middle of the deer.
You stay in that triangle.
I always pull
Don't
top
give
of the
that
heart.
shoulder
I
up.
always hold top of the heart.
Yep.
Try to hit it. Very rarely do I hit it. Most of the time you hit them dead center mass. In that triangle, triangle of death. You talking about the Bermuda Triangle? No,
That's
and it don't take much, son, to penetrate it.
Nope.
It's butter. I'm talking about you can just almost stick your finger in it,
Oh,
son.
yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Now, it don't take a whole lot to get through there.
No.
It don't take a lot. I mean, I'm getting excited and ready to go shoot one. Well, this deal, I shoot him, deer ducks a little bit, typical, hits him top of that scapula, and me and Cohen like, dude, smoke that sucker. Well, I get over there, ended up, I shoot the deer again. I had one lunged him. Still didn't get much penetration. Light arrow, light poundage, big Belarus whitetail. I know for a fact, if I'd have had my typical, even 460 to 500 grain arrow, with my typical 78-pound Hoyt in that situation, 28 Graw, I not only either bury that completely up to the fletch or possibly pass all the way through. So was my equipment flawed? No. It was out of the element of what I knew naturally. So basically, what typically would be a driving, golf club, a driver. I was actually, I thought I had a driver. In reality, I had a 9-iron. So my point is, once I went back to exactly the same setup, and now I'm setting exactly what I've always set up, getting to this dynamic of in the middle of what we're talking now, I'm going to your theory. Right now, I think I'm shooting a gold tip, which, by the way, we buy our arrows. We're not endorsed by that.
That's right.
You know, that's a set. That's a.
Mine weighs just a grunt over 500, and we just weighed yours. I got the scale right here, and yours is 472.
472.
Yep.
With this arrow right here, I have shot actually.
And you're but like 16 or 17% FOC.
So solid FOC.
Yep.
A little lighter arrow.
Yep.
This arrow right here, I promise you that I will, and I have success. Elk. I've killed elk, many elk with this arrow.
Yep.
I shot, well, I didn't, but I know our producer Cohen shot a moose with this essentially exact same setup.
Same arrow.
Same length and everything, I would say. 100 grain head. So you're talking 470. Moose, he had full penetration on his moose. I mean, it went not just stuck up to the fletch. I mean, it went through this moose. Now, he center punched him. Same thing, shot completely through an elk with this particular setup. So a plethora of different animals. This same arrow, same setup, which, by the way, I just buy these. I bought these at Bowfest last year, actually.
That's
From
right.
the Lancaster trailer. I went up. This is just a Hunter, the 340. I love it.
I remember you called me on the phone and was asking everything. I said, make sure you get the heavy brass inserts.
And I did. I got the inserts, which I was going to buy some more this time unless I can steal some from you and you ain't looking. But anyway, and I like these. I forgot what the name of these veins.
Those are tack veins.
Tack veins.
Yep.
I like them veins.
Yep. They're good and rigid.
I like the rigidness. Call me. I think me and you talked about this. I like the fact if you do get penetration, it's almost like a dull broadhead.
It clears out the wound channel.
I like it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. The stiffness of the veins means a lot.
That's a glory knock. That's the glory knock.
Correct.
So obviously it's pretty minimal compared to having a bright knock.
20 grains.
20 grains. So that ain't bad. So what's your typical?
About
knock?
12.
12. So you add a little bit more. So that
That's
ain't
right.
bad.
Yep.
So anyway,
we got to have that for filming. It just makes for better entertainment. So
long story short, the way I equate that particular year, and it was an odd. Through the rest of that year, I was able to get some heavier limbs, and I went back to my norm. But for what it was for me in that particular day, and it's not a knock on the arrow, it's not a knock on G5, it's not a knock on anything or that Hoyt.
You was in experimental mode.
I was playing out of a different bag of clubs that I normally would for my confidence, and it made me rethink what I'm doing.
Yep.
No different than I'm sure Tiffany Lacoste has to really think about angles. She's a female.
Yeah, well, yeah. Not because she's a female, just because of her draw length and her poundage.
Being the female and her particular energy and her statue and her draw length.
Yep.
She definitely, she's shooting big, large whitetails.
Now, I did see on this episode this week, I don't know, of Lee and Tiffany, she did get really good penetration on the side of that redneck blind.
Did she really?
Right the side of
That's good to know. She got good penetration. But what is Tiffany? What do you think Tiffany's draw weight?
I think she's shooting close to 60 now. I think, yeah.
So she's pretty stout.
Yeah, I think she is.
Probably a Vicky Ciancerulo, who's a pretty. You think she's probably around?
I think high 50s. I'd say
Melissa
55
Bachman,
to 60.
another killer.
Yeah, she's probably 60. Yeah, I mean, I think the higher weight, like we talked about, that you can get.
Better.
I think a lot of the ladies are getting on up there, high 50s and 60
I'm
pounds.
just going through my mind of female personality people like a Hannah Barron, very short.
Yeah.
What is she? Do you know what she's pulling?
Well, I don't know, but I would say it's probably close to 60 pounds. I'd
Really?
say 55. I would say so.
That's pretty
But her
Dude,
draw length is probably real sharp.
Do you realize how many dudes stop listening and start doing curls right now?
Yeah.
Ted Nugent, though, I think Ted shoots 55.
Yeah, I know it. And look at him. It's shot placement.
Oh, yeah.
He waits and he gets him in there. You just do with it what you do with what you got to.
Ted
But I don't want
kills
it.
a plethora
The biggest
of
thing I
animals.
want to take from this, the biggest thing I want everybody to take away from this, because we've been wanting to do this podcast, and it seems like it's a really hot topic and everything like that. But the biggest thing is, do not get overwhelmed with all this and let it deter your pursuit of game. Because look, Indians done it with a whole lot less. And the fact of the matter is if you got accuracy on your side and you put it where it needs to be and the broadheads are decently sharp, you're going to kill it. I don't want to tell you or beat somebody up if they don't use exactly what we're using or whatever. We're doing this to hopefully educate and make people feel comfortable with a big warm hug from T-Bone and Michael that you can do it. Get out there and enjoy the outdoors. And this is just a little bit of what we've learned. It ain't like a do-all, end-all. You got to do what we do and this, that, and the other. We're giving the guys praise that are saying heavy penetrates. We're giving the guy that wants to shoot a little lighter. Levi Morgan and those guys, they're not so up on FOC. I follow them. They're not real big up on that. But like Tim Gillingham as well as Levi Morgan. But they're getting away with it because they're such long draw lengths. Them guys are, 31-inch draw, and they're able to pull. And Lord knows they're the best archers in the world. Tim and
they should be legal. They're too
unbelievable.
good.
They're extremely good and everything like that. They're getting away with it. Whereas, I think I've proven it. That
it
it does help.
Aquaman to be out there competing.
Yes,
Levi Gillingham.
I know
son
it
of a guns.
exactly. So, with that said, I don't want nobody to feel overwhelmed by this, like it's just too much. I'm not going to bow hunt, blah blah. I'm just going to shoot a crossbow or whatever. We want you in the woods. We want to know that we've done a little education. We got a little bit of background, and hopefully this helps open up your eyes to some some good things that you can follow, and or at the end of the day, shoot as much weight as you can comfortably. Get you a good heavy arrow, and if you're in that feet per second that I'm telling you about, is well within the wheelhouse of killing any critter just about that walks on the North American continent. Now you got to tweak things.
You got to tweak.
If you go to moose, you got to tweak. If you go to Cape Buffalo, if you go to Africa, you tweak things. But I'm just saying, we don't have the money to.
The beauty of what you've described, T-Bone, where you don't have to tweak. I think what you're saying overall, and I've got track record of history. Say with this era, ask our producer Cohen Stone, as even you, as Nick, we are kind of worldly hunters. So really the only thing I'm not really hunting with this arrow is a Cape buffalo or an elephant.
Correct.
Honestly, a kudu.
Correct.
A Gims buck. If I go to Africa, warthog. For me, if I go to Yukon tomorrow, I can tell you what I do, and it's perfectly legal. I'm screwing on a mega meat. I'm taking this 470 grain arrow, and I promise you, watch the show, we'll bring a moose back.
Yep.
Now, do I know my limitations? Am I going to go through that knuckle bone of a moose? Nope.
But another 100 grains is not going to get you there either.
What would I have to build to do that? Now, it would be fun scientifically, but in my mind, there's no need to do that.
All right, let's just do this. Let's just do this. All right, you're saying I can't go through that, but let's build you an arrow that could go through that. Okay, so now we've built you an arrow that's 900 grains, single bevel broadhead, 25.
Do we know it will?
No, we don't know it will, but it's going to have a better chance.
Better chance.
Hang on. Hang on
I
with
like
me.
that.
You got a lot better chance of going through that knuckle. But what did we there's always trade-offs. What did we lose with that? We just took you out of your wheelhouse.
Took me out of my bag. You changed my bag again.
I know. I got the arrow's there.
Yep.
If you can get the trajectory, you get that moose that 30 yards are in, you got him. I mean, honestly, it's going to penetrate well. You're probably going to you got a good chance of going through that leg bone. But if you had to take a 60-yard shot, trajectory's off. It's something that I've changed everything up. You've got 30 years of history of shooting 260 to 290 feet a second. You're used to that trajectory. It's not going to be, it's going to have a lot more drop on it. You're going to feel like, oh my God, I need to get this. I got to get this animal close. I got to get this animal close. And you're not going to want to take that shot or feel as comfortable shooting a 50 or 60-yard shot as you would.
Not unless I spent a lot of time, and that would
That's
be.
right.
I would be a virgin to that based on my 40 or however many years I've been doing this.
Yep. So then we've got you that 470 to 550 grain arrow. You got the confidence, you got the speed, you got the poundage. It's like I'm going to accurately put that thing nowhere near that leg bone. I'm going to put it in that large pizza box of a Vitals that Joker's got, and I'm going to kill his butt from
every time.
I'm going to kill his butt from 0 to 70 yards.
On a nearly a big one, Fox's pizza box, nearly the size of a Volkswagen hood.
That's right.
I mean, it's a big Vital.
And I'm gonna majority of the time avoid that big old knuckle
All
leg
I got to do is
there.
miss the leg bone.
That's
and you're
right.
A moose at 60 yards seems like he's standing at 25.
Yes.
How I know? Because
Yes.
I've seen it. And in this case, I'm like, oh, my God, I'm about to shoot him. He's probably 25, 30 yards. And I range, I'm like, oh, my God, let him walk. And the moose I've shot have been anywhere from 30 to 25.
Yes.
And I'm going to tell you, a moose standing at 20 yards is a pretty impressive, intimidating thing. And when you aim at them, every pin you own is on that moose.
Yeah.
Every pin you own.
And instantly, in a nanosecond.
Not only is it on them, it's on the Vitals.
Instantly, nanosecond, your confidence is like, wow, that's
Death.
awesome. I got him.
Death cometh. That's what I'm thinking.
So when it comes to, we got these bows that are so efficient. These companies have worked so hard and putting such great innovations in the things that we shoot, whether it be the arrow, whether it be the broadhead, and especially the bow. Let's utilize them to maximize all of our efforts rather than going down one road. Let's just utilize them to make it the most efficient and be one with it.
And what I would say is, if anything to take away from, because I know when you do stuff like this, there's everybody from beginners to people that's been doing it a few years to extreme veterans. And so obviously, as you mentioned, people, like if you think about it, in this podcast, we've mentioned people like Cameron Haynes, who we have a lot of respect for, Levi Morgan, Gillingham, some of the, if not the top best archers in the world.
Yep.
Not just on foam. These guys kill things. I mean, and you ain't never seen anal. Hey, I fletched this myself. I guarantee you, Gillingham, and even you will look at it like, God, Waddell, getting sloppy. In my mind, I'm thinking, dude, this is work of art.
Honestly, it does look pretty good.
Do you like it?
I already looked at it. You did good, man.
Thank
good
you,
job.
bro. I'm serious. I'm proud of that. Well, these guys are so anal about their setup, and so when I start looking at all of this and start thinking about it, you got to stay in your bag of confidence and accuracy. So what I would say is, if you listen to what T-Bone's saying, and even me, because I'm shooting exactly, essentially, I'm, 30 grains lighter than maybe, or 40 grains lighter than you right now. But overall, same wheelhouse of production and equipment. But what I will say is, lighter can work, heavier can work. In the middle of what we're talking can still work. However, I think at the end of it, if you're a beginner, are you experienced? I do think we realize that the vitals of most animals, and when I think about animals, I'm thinking about a white-tailed deer, antelope, and then in some cases, if you go into elk, you have a little bit more hardy animal, bigger ribs.
Yep.
But overall, in the true sweet spots, if you get back to the 243 and 338, the true sweet spot of a known distance animal, and you have accuracy and you can hit it, it really doesn't take that much energy. I'll say it again, it doesn't take that much energy. So all of this that we're talking about on double bevel 600 grain arrows, really to a degree, is for a mistake. Or you might say, now I can maybe possibly that 1/4 2 shot that was always taboo and no to take. Maybe you could perform that, because now you got butthole to elbow that you got angles. It changes your angles.
Yes.
Now, again, I still don't even like a 1/4 away shot. People are like, what are you crazy? Let me tell you something. It's angles. I cheated to pass geometry.
Yeah.
But I'm a redneck killer, and so when I'm looking at a deer, what's a deer doing when he's 1/4 away? He's exposing the very back of a lung to get to the other lung. So you got a good chance of center punching the off lung.
Yeah.
But you might can hit in the back of the one lung, come in on the gut. Now, granted, you hitting liver, and that, take a mega meat through there.
That's
that sucker
right.
ain't going far. But why do I like a dead broadside? I've been with the cameraman, like, shoot him, let him get dead broadside.
Yeah.
Like he's slightly 1/4, and that's what I like. No, what I like is because I'm still shaking. I've killed a lot, but I'm still nervous. He's 35. Let him get dead broadside.
That's right.
I got them lungs squared up. I might even pull a little left and put it through that freaking heart muscle, son, and give him that stint that he been needing, that I've been hoping to give him when I drew this tag. But at this point, I got a squared up lung. So again, it's about angles. So even with all this penetration, you can slide right through on a 1/4 2 shot, and you might get through that bone. You might bust through it, but guess what you still get? One lung.
Yeah, and there's
So there's a lot of things to dissect. So at the end of it,
there's so many scenarios.
Stick with what works for you. Play out of the bag that you've been winning with.
Yep.
If you're not winning and you're consistently losing, that's the time to go look at a new club.
That's right.
That's the time to look at a new setup. If you're not winning. So my point when I hear people talk and they polarizing, I don't disagree that their setup works for them. But every shot isn't a feeder with a 20-yard animal that's sitting under a feeder. I'm going to places, you're going to places, not this year unless we get that heavy-duty insurance coming on so we can get that other bionic leg in here so you like the $1 million man running around. But obviously you're running through the elk woods. You know, why do we shoot pins? Because I'm shooting from 20 to 80, and I need to do it in a hurry. If you ever seen an elk, they're very athletic. They can be bugling and rutted up and peeing all over themselves looking for a cow, and they run by you at 20, and all of a sudden they go behind some brush, some pinyons, and they come out on the other side, and they're 60 yards like that. What are you going to do?
Gotta be
Do you
ready.
got time to move your pins?
Nope.
Then you pull back, and obviously you do move your pins. You pull it back. Oh my God! And you're thinking, if you're not at one, if that ain't your club, you know, you're sitting there,
Yep.
you're holding that 60, like I can hit him, and then for that split second, like, oh my God, am I gonna hit that limb?
Yep.
Well, for me, again, what do I have? I have a cluster of pins. Is that sometimes obtrusive to my sight? It can be, but I stayed in this bag because my deal is not to win a tournament at this point. It's to completely create death and gut piles and happiness and joy so I can come back and get the hugs from T-Bone and Nick and our family.
That's right.
And say, you ain't going to believe it, man. I hit him good. I did this and that. So in this point, when I pull back this bow and this elk goes from 20 to 60 and I can get that 60-yard range, I can see it all. I can see it all. I see my whole window. I see my whole flight lane, if it's there, based on my pins. I'm seeing what's at 20. I'm seeing what's at 30, seeing what's at 40. And obviously I got this 60 on money, son. And so I'm looking. And if I can't get there, if my sight lane ain't there, and I look like, oh, my God, that limb's around 30, my 30's right on it, guess what? I got a good clean at 60 on my pin. I can see it. But there's no way I'm going to hit this animal. This 30 is in the limb.
Right.
You don't got a shot. So that's what it tells me. So overall, I'm staying in my bag, and my bag, I've won a lot of tournaments. And so I'm not saying that other people's bag don't work. So when you get that bag and you win many victories, only change it when you start struggling. In my personal opinion, if you have a technical side, maybe you're a guy that lives in Texas and you're shooting deer and you're shooting 20 to 30, 40 yards, and that's your shot all the time. Maybe you live in Kansas, though, and you're shooting a little bit further. Maybe you got those windy conditions. If you can't shoot in the wind in Kansas, you're just going to not shoot.
Yeah.
So you might want a heavy arrow that gets through the wind. You might want to look at what something like Brady Ellison's doing at FOC. If you're going to the mountains and you're hunting sheep, you better understand everything about a Bushnell broadhead rangefinder with arc that lets you know when you range that animal, he's 90 yards and it says shoot 70.
Yeah.
People are like, there's no way. No, you shoot 70. Just trust it. Put your 70-yard pin.
That's right.
And you better have a pin, and you better have an arrow that you can make decisions, that you can shoot and have accuracy, whether it's a 700 grain arrow or a 400 grain arrow.
Yep.
You better be able to hit that son of a gun softball every time.
That's right.
If you do that, you're going to have more success. And what you will find is you will put yourself in a situation. You will not be able to blame your equipment. And I do think that's the number one crutch. They want an excuse.
Yep.
I don't like to give myself any excuse.
That's
and
right.
if I find out that it might have been my equipment and it might have been my setup, like I feel like that year that I struggled early in the year, I'm disappointed in myself only because it was my job to have the right equipment. And if I knew I could have succeeded and pushed through it, I should have known that going into it and had the mindset to know that I should have shot a little lower, or I should have been a little bit more closer, or I should have had to make sure put it for sure in that butter. So, I mean, that's my long rant on it, and I just think there's a lot of things that work. Just like a 243 to a 338. It works.
Yeah, it's a confidence thing, and then there's so many different scenarios, but it comes back to like what we've talked about. Accuracy wins, and you got options, meaning like don't get hung up on one thing or the other. We're just showing you, here's your wheelhouse. Here's your wheelhouse, and this is what works, and this is what good, and just know that you can have confidence going to it. And these are the things that you like take away. You don't want to skimp on.
And if you have to think a lot about it, I get back to my guitar analogy. When if you were to walk out and just start playing a blues shuffle, da-dum, 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 and Stevie Ray Vaughan comes back from the dead, and he's over there with that white Strat with that SRV on it, he's gonna look up E. He ain't even gonna look up. You're in E. he's going to close his eyes, put that Marlboro Red in the head of that guitar, son, and he's going to rip. He ain't going to look at the fretboard. He's going to probably tear strings off it, and it's going to be the sweetest blue scales. If you ask him what scale, he's like, I don't even know. You know,
just feel.
And same with Hendrix, same with Clapton.
That's right.
That guitar, they know, just like the side.
It's an extension of their body.
And they play it. And I think archery, golf, throwing a football, so many things, baseball, if you have that accuracy and you have that confidence and you know its dimensions of where the success can go and where the failure will inevitably happen.
Yep.
And you know that and have confidence, have experience with it, I just think you win.
Yep.
And I think there's a lot of places that people can go. So there's not one way you have to be. And I think the area you described in the setup, T-Bone, I do agree. You're not doing that opinionated based on pushing this on somebody. That's based on your evaluation of statistics, death, on the tournament trail, and everything overall, I would say.
Proof on the target, proof on the critters. And not just with me, but building it through other folks too. Other people are finding success. It's crazy not to take advantage of the innovations that we have today and make things work. You know, like they are. You know, going back to what you and I said. But we had it. I'm not going to say we had it rough. I love our beginnings in the archery, but like you talked about, long overdraws, 23-12s, 22-13s. You know, doing everything we can, pulling 100 pounds, 110 pounds, 115 pounds, just to do everything we. Yeah. Those things. I don't regret any of that because it's got it to where we are now, meaning like it's an evolution of learning and being in the trenches and being a steward of and a student of archery and everything about it. It's just, you know, Ted says it best, it's the magical fly of the air, and it really is. I mean, it's been that way, whether it's a heavy arrow, light arrow, whatever. We've been through all that, and we've seen what it's done, and we've seen. So now we don't have to work that hard. We can take I honestly could take a bow that's 60 pounds now and do more with it than I could with 110 pounds back in the day.
100%.
Yeah. So we need to take those innovations, and until we can get a bow, until innovations get us to the point where we can shoot a 700 or 800, 900 grain arrow at that 280 ballpark range of speed, we need to do what we've got here. And then the pin gaps and everything. I mean, just like if you're checking off all the boxes and you're wanting to build something, I just feel real good about what we've got. I know we've been over it so many times.
Well, it is, and I think overall, if you really want to look at, if you think about the people in archery that changed the trajectory of it, well, first of all, go back to Ishii and the Native Americans, and you look at that. They were experimenting. They had to create better broadheads. They had to nap different, had to finally find the Osage orange and the different things to build a stiffer, stronger bow. Then you get into Ishii teaching Pope and Young. If you read the journals of Pope and Young, it was a wild experiment. They went to Africa. They didn't know what would work and what wouldn't. So a lot of people these days are very hard to talk about experiments. But there's experimental aircraft. There's a lot of people died flying planes.
That's the truth.
They're dead.
That's the truth.
I mean, you know why? You know what they did? Like, man, that didn't work. Hopefully there's enough of this wreckage we can see what made it work. You're like, man, that was tough calls to these wives, right? Yeah. But that's what happened. All right, so you go back and look, and one of my favorite books was Fred Bear's Field Notes. Fred Bear, one of the biggest innovators and influencers ever in American archery that we think about, especially through the 50s, 60s, on into the 70s. I remember what was fascinating reading about Pope and Young and reading about Fred Bear. Is it was so black and white. They wasn't worried about social media, and you couldn't counsel them. What was you going to do? Well, you can't go to Africa. Was people going to protest when they landed their plane over there?
They wouldn't know. They wouldn't even know till 2 years after they got back. It would say pretty plain, like shot a line at 50 yards. It looked like it hit him good, but note to self. I mean, I'm paraphrasing. This don't work. This setup don't work. Too far. They wounded a line. That's right.
Tried to shoot an elephant. Shot him 7 times. Don't work.
Yep.
Shot Cape Buffalo, got him, wounded him, got him down. We finally speared him. He's out. Think we need a little bit more energy.
Yep.
Man, complete penetration on a Gims buck, complete penetration on an Impala. I find that intriguing. And if you go and read, Pope and Young and read Fred Bear. Fred Bear, one of my favorite hunts I read about. Didn't see it. It wasn't on video. There was a sheep. He talks about this sheep being over this valley. He could see his horns. And
knew which way he was pointed.
He knew which way he was pointed. So he admits that it was a low percentage shot. and he knew his bow enough, which back obviously it's a recurve or long bow. I think it's a recurve, Fred Bear recurve. He pulls back and he realizes that when he pulls back all the way, he's going to be shooting too hot. He's going to shoot too hot. He's going to hit the side of the hill. So in this case, you know, it's a recurve. He's throwing a baseball. You hear the saying, old traditional? It's like throwing a baseball. Well, the reason I don't shoot traditional is because I never was a pitcher. I mean, I will hit you if you stand at home plate, son. I ain't gonna throw a strike. I'm gonna walk you or knock your head off. So Fred Bear talks about he half drew the bow. He didn't come to full draw. He lofted and pinwheeled him. And he talks about it being his best shot ever, and he was fascinated because it was somewhat of an experiment. But what an amazing shot. He knew that equipment. What is Tiger Woods when he comes up to and he pulls a sand wedge out and he says, okay, it's 40 yards. That sucker goes sky high and he puts enough English, it spins right back. He knows that wedge. What did Fred Bear know? He knew this. So I would say no matter what you're shooting on one extreme or the other, you better know it. And you better know it past what you think you want to know it. You better know it past 20 yards.
That's correct.
You better know it, you know, up to 100 if you want to see.
That's correct.
If you're going after some of these animals.
That's correct. You want to have the ability to do that and feel that way. And then it comes back to accuracy wins, forgiveness helps, and then what we always say, shoot maybe, no shoot, no maybe. You ain't going to kill it if you don't shoot at it.
You dang right.
You got to let it go. So,
well, I know we've been talking. I could talk for 3 more hours on this.
Man,
because
we've
one
hammered
is,
it.
T-Bone, you're a world of knowledge, and there's a lot of things we didn't talk about on a bow, but I think the arrow, the broadhead setup is one thing that is important. I do agree with you 100%. If you're going to skimp a little bit, skimp in a sight. Don't skimp on your wrist.
Yeah.
I know we shooting these HHA, and I just love that wrist. I love that drop-away type of wrist. We've shot the QAD. Hoyt, a lot of the manufacturers have these type of wrists available in their line if you order a bow, but I like that style. The good release, these true ball releases, they're not cheap. But, oh, my goodness, they're so durable.
I'm really excited about this new hybrid. Are you aware of this one?
No.
Yeah, well, this is the new hybrid. This is the bone collector. You know, we've shot this. I actually talked about it a little bit ago, but we've shot these prototypes for so long, since 2008.
Not
these are the
even
first 3, yeah. So they were the prototypes, and how many critters have died by that?
That son of a gun.
I'm still shooting it, but I think I'm going to change, and here's the reason why. I'm sure you got to see this at the ATA. I didn't get to go this year, but this is the same exact beast line. It's got the 100-pound spring in there, but this trigger, you see it's got a set screw right here. You can change that angle. You can turn it around. You can have a forward trigger. So you got 3 different trigger positions with this one.
Wow.
So it's the same release that we've always shot, except for you got options on your trigger position. So if you want a swept back trigger, which I love and I highly recommend, this is the one to go with. Or if you want to go with you just take that bolt out, bolt it on a different way, and it goes this way. And or it goes for the trigger forward for the guys that are trying to get every little bit of anchor length and draw length out of it. They can have their finger perched up there right where the thing is.
So add the salt and pepper you want.
Yeah, exactly. So you got options.
It ain't pre-salted. You add as wanted.
As needed. Yep, that's right.
Needed.
3 different trigger positions, all with one release, and it already has the 100-pound.
Even got that feel of a grenade on the back. You like that?
Yeah, it's knurled so that you have texture.
Is
so
it
that
knurled
you can
or gnarled?
It's called knurled.
Knurled.
Yeah, gnarled is when
gnarled's
when you find that you fall off your bike and you skid down the road in the gravel. The side of your head's gnarled
or that
up.
chicken wing.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
gnaw that bone.
Polish them up.
Holy cow! Well, I'm gonna tell you, everything's so good. You gave it to me like you was giving it to me. I think
either way.
Not well.
Here, just hand it back to me like this under the table.
Yeah, I'll take what I can get when I'm in the dojo, baby. Mr. Miyagi start give you something, you're gonna take it home.
Exactly.
Well, man, we've talked so much. We could talk a lot longer. I know I'm still eager to get my bow set up and get on back to the house, and maybe my wife has cooked up a nice little meal for me, and that's always good. And like I say, you know what? I ain't gonna sit here and argue with T-Bone about archery stuff, and I ain't gonna argue with my wife on biscuits, because you know what? They work every damn time, baby. I'm always happy when I get them, and I'm always happy when T-Bone turns some wrenches and says, Waddell, try this. And you know one thing I still got? Go back to the Shane Collier days. If you need a guinea pig, say, Waddell, will you tell me what's up with this?
Yeah.
Waddell will get you an answer.
That's right.
I will get you an answer. I might not air it, but I will tell you some deathly results. So I'm not trying to, push on people a certain type of. I tell you what I want to push on people Get out there and hunt and enjoy it and
Yeah,
find
that's
out
right.
for yourself. Don't even trust me.
That's right.
Don't trust me. Find out for
That's
yourself,
exactly
baby.
right.
Find out for yourself. I ain't gonna tell you you're gonna like sushi. I always thought I didn't.
Yep.
I thought who's eating cut bait
Yeah, I ain't not
with
me.
a little wasabi? I mean, come on. I ate it and I'm like looking around and I feel like man, this sushi ain't bad.
Not bad at all.
Now, is it better than fried chicken? No.
No.
But they got to eat sushi all the time. I ain't telling you to eat fried chicken. Like, try it.
Exactly.
You try some of my wife's fried chicken, try some of collard greens, and see if it fails.
Yep. I don't want nobody to be intimidated by all this,
Me
because
either.
at the end of the day, the innovations have made it so easy. I mean, really, you don't have to deep dive like I have.
No.
By no means. It's so easy, and they're so great. And archery, it's so great when I set up people with brand new bows, and I can tell that in their head they're thinking like, man, I'll be lucky to hit a pizza pie at 20 yards. And when they go out there and within 20 shots, we've got them grouping like a baseball, knowing that they could go to the woods on shot number 21 and kill a deer. That's the way, not just me setting up bows, but all these independent retailers across all these pro shops across this country have the same abilities to set you up. You walk in the door and you get set up with a modern compound bow, and I promise you within 20, 25 shots, you've got everything you need to go deer hunting and do it. And then you can start tweaking. And just like we did, that's the beginning of your journey, like we did 35 years ago, 40 years ago. That's the beginning of your journey of learning what works for you and gathering information. But the biggest thing is within 25 shots, your tree stand ready. You're ready. You're going to be learning. We're still learning. Everybody's going to be learning. We could have this podcast again in 15 years.
We're still learning. Might change
We're
everything.
Still learning.
We might find that there's something else that'd be less or more that works even better.
Absolutely.
I think what happens is, and I think this is another one of these weird things that happen when we're just trying to describe and people try to put things on us. It's almost like literally yesterday, we in North Carolina, we eating at this fine restaurant, and I'm really a steak and potatoes type of guy, and it's this fine fire grilled restaurant. And so I look at the menu, and literally I look, and it's like mashed Kobe between two brochet, cheese, extremity, all this stuff. And I said, ma'am, is this a cheeseburger? Yes, it's cheeseburger. And then I look, and it says Diablo fire roasted free range. I'm like, what in the cornbread hell is Diablo free? I said, is this chicken? It's like, yes, it's just rotisserie chicken. So I was like, give me some Diablo. I was in the mood for some chicken. They gave me this fire-roasted chicken. It was delicious. But when it come out, it was so simple. Dude, it was simple. It was just like a beautiful browned half chicken.
The menu built it up.
And I'm thinking, I even showed my buddy. I said, where in this is Diablo fire-roasted free range? What is a Diablo? Is this like, did they pull that from Talladega Nights? So I think what happens if you watch a lot of the content, they try to put this menu on you that's so overwhelming that you don't know what in the world is going on.
Yeah.
When in reality, it's simple.
It is simple.
It's simple. And then find what you like. If you like a good cheeseburger, it might be the Wendy's #1, son, all the way, or Hold the Pickles. I don't know, but find it, and it's yours. And it tastes good. It's filling. And so in that, don't let the menu confuse you or intimidate you. And guess what? I was intimidated. And I don't look at a menu long. Me and you know what we want.
Yep.
I know I'm getting Pola Rosa Maria at Carrabba's. I know you getting the what's that, brine? You know,
yeah, filet brine.
Filet brine with goat cheese. I know that. I ain't intimidated.
Extra goat cheese.
Extra, yes, you like that. That song gonna come out. T-Bones comes out, and I can hear it coming. Like, there's T-Bones. Yours is ready.
Every time I go, I send you and Christy a picture, don't I?
You do every time, and we're gonna go to. I want some Carrabba's now. But anyway, make it simple, make it easy, and just get what you want off the menu. Make it work. You know it's gonna be filling. You know it's gonna work for you.
That's
and
right.
That way you're not disappointed. But then if you change something on that menu, just be prepared to know you got to learn it. You got a new bag.
Yeah.
You got our buddy Ryan Wakening. He's a professional wakeboarder. He can do tricks on all the boards. But if he's riding, if I want to throw him a wrench on a technical trick, I can throw him just this odd board with a different shape, a little different geometry. He can still do some stuff way more than I can do. But he's like, man, I need to ride this board a couple weeks.
Yeah, exactly.
And he can probably do some of the same tricks.
Yeah,
he
same
might
thing.
even, after riding a couple weeks, like, you know what, I'm changing. I like the vibe of this. This is a little heavier. Who knows? But my point is, stay in your bag and then experiment on the side. So anyway, T-Bone, I love you, buddy.
I love you too, man. I'm glad we got to talk about this, and like you said, we could talk for hours and hours and hours, but like you said, we still got to set up your bow, and I don't know how long we've talked, but I guarantee it's over an hour.
Dude, I know. My wife is always like, y'all's podcast too long. I'm like, man, listen to Rogan, dude. We only talked an hour, hour 30. We might have went 2. I don't know.
And we haven't even fired up a blunt.
No, exactly. Ain't even smoked a cigar. Ain't even smoked no weed. Dude, we'd be still here. We on into the night.
I know it, man.
Well, hope you took something away, everybody. I tell you,
Yes.
man. T-Bone, honestly, I will brag on him because he's humble. And sometimes, you things need to be bragged on. T-Bone is the most humble, down-to-earth guy. He's not in to push anything. Even as hard-headed as I am in my confidence in archery and what I do in shooting, he has changed me, and every time he's never led me astray. And so I'm telling you, none of this we're trying to share is trying to tell you or trying to label you as a man, woman, child, or lesser, or you ain't nothing, you ain't this. We're just trying to say, if you look at championships, T-Bone's got them. If you look at death, we provided it. If you look at failure, we've had some of those too. We learn just as much from success as we have from the failure. And the difference in us, we will tell you where we failed, and we will tell you why we failed. And I will say, in failure, there's sometimes you don't even know why. You'll never know it. But I still search for why.
Yeah.
There's a lot of situations.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know why, but I can tell you it failed, and I want to avoid it, and I want to get better. So now I'm in this confidence of animals across North America. I'm not a lion hunter. I'm not an elephant hunter. I have killed a Cape buffalo. I've killed gemsbuck. I've killed kudu. I've killed some moose. I've killed some elk. I've done it with arrows like this. I've done it at 280 feet per second, mostly with expandable broadheads. And for me, you can label me whatever you want to, but where legal, this is what I'm taking, and this is what I'm bringing home to goods. This is what I'm feeding Mama and my family with.
That's right.
And it's my bag. For anyone to tell me I'm a sissy or I'm not a man or I'm not this, they are less of a man because they ain't even looked enough through what is in the pudding. And I ain't just thinking about the recipes. I got lots of big batches of bowls of this pudding.
Exactly.
So I don't even want to hear it. And I think it's arrogant for them to do that.
Yeah, and I don't like where people...
And it makes me arrogant because I want them to look at my damn pudding.
And people regurgitate what they think is right rather than having the attributes and the things behind them that prove that to be correct. Meaning, like, we've got a track record of shooting and being in the laboratory and the dojo down here and making sure things are right and going through the penetration and going through the accuracy and the piles of gut piles and stuff like that. We've got that rather than just regurgitating what someone says and like, I don't think that's what I want to do because of this.
Yeah.
I mean, we're just sharing this so that hopefully that you can gain something from it.
Yep. Throw away the formulas, throw away the physics, and just look at the pile of bones.
Wish we could share camp with every freaking body and just shake
too.
hands. And man, it means everything to me. So I just want people out there hunting and happy. And if they take away a little bit of what we've got, then we've done our job. So that's all I've got to say.
That's
about
all
that.
I want. T-Bone, love you. And you know what? Blue Cross Blue Shield, give my man his leg.
Yeah,
my man needs a leg. It's getting close to deer season. We need a leg, and we need my man to be in a good attitude and take these arrows and this bow and arrow. We need to get to work and show some of these fun adventures.
Exactly.
T-Bone, thank you for joining me. I know we'll
Always.
come up with something we need to talk about again real soon, buddy.
Yep. Love you, man.
Love you, boy.
Thank you, buddy.
You too.